Okay, good morning. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners Agenda Setting Work Session. It's Tuesday, July 27th, 2021. It is 9:03 a.m. My name is Ty Menser, Chair of the Board. To my right is Commissioner Carolina Mejia. Vice Chair Commissioner Edwards is on the Zoom. County Manager Miro Chavez to my left, and Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell off to my right. And we're also, as usual, having public access through our Thurston County YouTube channel through a live stream. So, as usual, we'll start with item 1. County Manager has something up front.
Yeah, Commissioners, thank you. There is a revision to the agenda today on item number 5, an executive session. I will reschedule that. Elizabeth Petrus had a family emergency they needed to attend, so I will find the next available date. There is not a timeline related to that particular item, so we should be able to find the next available date for that executive session. Thank you.
Okay, very good. So item 10.5 will be rescheduled. So with that, we'll go to our COVID-19 update. Item 1, I see Shelley Slaughter. Good morning, Shelley.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Your voice is really low.
Can you hear me?
Hold on. You're not coming through.
Is my volume any better?
That's better. Got it.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Today is day 538 of Thurston County's COVID-19 response. In Washington State, to date, there have been 469,308 confirmed cases of COVID-19, with 6,089 Washingtonians that have lost their lives due to COVID. Here in Thurston County, we have had 11,753 confirmed cases of COVID-19, with 279 of those cases occurring in the last week. We do continue to see cases on the rise here in Thurston County. 119 Thurston County residents have died of COVID-19, with one death occurring in this last week. 765 Thurston County residents have been hospitalized due to COVID, and our current hospital capacity is extremely full at 89.1% in our acute beds and 5.4% of our COVID ICU beds occupied. This equates to 91 COVID patients hospitalized in acute beds and 10 in regional ICU beds. We've had 62 congregate care outbreaks to date in Thurston County, with one currently that we are investigating at the Thurston County Correctional Facility. In terms of our vaccines, Thurston County vaccine providers have administered 296,000 doses of COVID-19. This equates to 53.4% of our total population that has initiated at least one dose of COVID-19 vaccine. This includes children under age 12 who are not yet eligible yet. 49.1% of our total population is fully vaccinated. 63.5% of Thurston County residents age 16 and older have initiated at least one dose of COVID-19 vaccine. And this is in comparison to Washington State's current metric of just over 70% for the state. So Thurston County is a bit under the Washington State metric for this, for 16 and over initiating. 58.6% of Thurston County residents 16 and older are fully vaccinated. We still strongly encourage those who are eligible, who have not been vaccinated yet, to please get vaccinated. Thurston County Public Health and Social Services offers vaccines at various places throughout Thurston County 7 days a week. This last week, we were at both YMCAs out in Tenino. Today, our team is at Timberline High School. We are at Capitol Mall next to the Buckle store 7 days a week. And this next week, we are at other locations throughout Thurston County, including the Bucota Community Center, the Yelm Community Center, and more. So please check out our Thurston County website for the latest vaccination schedules. And with Oh, and I also did want to send another reminder to people to please follow up and get your second dose. So if you go to one of our mobile or community-based vaccine locations, very important to get that second dose. There are multiple ways that you can get it. We do schedule those follow-up appointments when people receive their first vaccine at a mobile clinic, and they can also self-schedule or walk into any of our Thurston County vaccine clinics, and we do post what type of vaccine we're offering at each of our locations. And with that, I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Yes, Shelley, how are we doing compared to other counties around the state in terms of vaccination?
Yes, so Thurston County is doing quite well. We remain in the top 10 of all counties in the state in terms of our vaccination rates, and we're the leader in our region and neighboring counties in terms of our vaccine rates.
With, in terms of COVID cases, are we still having the trend of going up, or are we starting to slow down?
Yes, we are definitely seeing cases on the rise. Our test positivity rate is 9.3%. So that is quite a bit higher than we are accustomed to seeing. And we are concerned about variants circulating. We have had one confirmed a Delta variant strain identified in the Thurston County case. We expect there are more, and this is very contagious, and we want people to be extra cautious. Again, the best tool is to get vaccinated and also wearing masks whenever possible.
So with the 9.83 positivity rate, I mean, when did we see those positivity rates? Was it maybe mid-pandemic, or was it when there were holidays in previous years? Geez. No, it was just 1 year ago. It felt like more. But last year, is there a comparison to when there was this spike?
Yes, we were seeing this type of rate about a couple months ago. I don't have the exact timeline in front of me at the moment, but we have seen this before. We do expect after holidays where people may gather and to see a spike. So, but we're a little bit past 4th of July for that to be the full cause of this spike. Of course, the state primarily has reopened at capacity and people are gathering. So we really want to encourage people to gather responsibly, and especially for those that are unvaccinated. This is a very serious illness. This pandemic is far from over. Please get vaccinated. Please wear your mask, especially when you are around others if you are not vaccinated.
Thank you.
Just looking at my notes, Commissioner, and it looks like May 18th, we had a 10.5, and then it fell precipitously right after that. I have one question on that, Shelley, and I'll get to Commissioner Edwards. The handout says 7.4, but you said 9.3. Is the 9.3 more up to date, or is there than the report that we got?
The 9.3% is from this morning.
Okay. Shelley, when it comes to deaths, are we experiencing any deaths related to this new variant that they keep referring to?
So in Washington State, there have been about 3,000, excuse me, I apologize. That is not the question that you were asking, Commissioner Edwards. So can you please repeat that question for me?
What I'm wondering about is, have we experienced any deaths from this new variant?
Thank you.
Here.
So in Thurston County, we have not had any deaths attributed to the Delta variant at this time.
And the deaths that we have had, are they individuals that have never been vaccinated?
Primarily so.
So it's a good reason to get a vaccination is what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. The vaccines are very effective in preventing death.
Okay, thank you.
Shelley, when you say that we're doing better than neighboring counties, but we're behind the state average, so that the only way that math works out, I guess, is if King County is just way ahead of everybody in terms of a vaccination rate. Is that what's going on?
Yes, King County is the top leader in terms of vaccine rates, right behind, I believe, San Juan County, which is a very small county.
Okay.
But in terms of population size, yes.
And do you know what their number is offhand? Like, are they 80% or?
I do not have their data available right now.
Do you know, have their corollary statistics shown, has that borne fruit for them? I mean, are there cases falling and positivity rate falling and all of that, or do you know?
I know that King County is, and the rest of the state is seeing this increase in cases that are happening right now, especially among those who are unvaccinated.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Anything, County Manager? Yes, sir. No, okay, thank you, Shelley.
Thank you.
Item 2 is homeless strategies update, and Keely Marino pops right up. Good morning, Keely.
Good morning, Commissioners. Keely Marino with Public Health and Social Services. I have a list for you today. I'm just going to start off really quickly with our rental assistance update, which is to this day, $7.3 million has gone out in rental assistance. They anticipate being able to spend down their funds by the end of September at this point. They've spent $263,000 on utility assistance, and that is for Community Action Council. 1,091 households have been served, while 705 other households are just in that process with their applications, and another 600 following that who have appointments. CYS is following closely with $454,000 spent in rental assistance. I don't know where those other numbers came from. And about $2,600 in utility assistance. So we're trucking along. Sticking with CYS and the good news, because I like the good news, they received a $5,000 grant from All In Washington. And so what that means, this is for vaccines. So they're doing a youth-specific vaccine event on the 4th of August from 10 to 2 p.m. at 711 State Avenue. So that's their main campus building. They'll be administering vaccines for the youth that they serve, their families, and then any other staff and community members. So just some good news. Glad to see a youth-specific activity happening around vaccinations. All right, some other news. We have just an update on the scattered site pilot program, and then specifically around Ensign Road. So the scattered site pilot program on the case management and site management side with our contracted agency, Olympia Mutual Aid Partners, or OLIMAP, are all staffed up and began serving those camps in full force last week. The most I've heard is around Ensign Road, which is, I know, on everyone's mind as it continues to grow. The camp continues to move beyond its earlier iteration of where the vehicles ended. So they said that they had excellent response about getting individuals signed up for case management, people really wanting to get moving, get out of that circumstance, just a really excellent reception to the work that OLIMAP offers. And they are going to continue working with them on a one-on-one basis. We also met together with Providence St. Peter Hospital staff. We met with Darren Goss, the executive director, and Angela Mackey yesterday, as well as staff members from neighboring businesses. So Mother Joseph's and the radiology center, so South Sound Radiology, and the other radiology folks that have considerable concerns about the camp encroaching on closer to their businesses. And so it was a really productive introduction. Olympia Mutual Aid Partners will be working with the security team at Providence, as well as meeting individually with Mother Joseph's staff and the radiology folks to just ensure that they understand exactly what that group can offer and have a contact for those businesses when they have concerns to reach out to only Olympia Mutual Aid partners. Also establishing firmly what their role is, and that only MAP are not enforcement. They are not, they don't have enforcement authority, but they are there to support the folks that are living in their vehicles there and businesses. So it was a really productive, positive meeting. Providence and the other businesses were really appreciative of meeting, and we intend to meet, and I will support them on a monthly basis to just see how things are going.
When you say, Keely, when you say we, what do you mean? You're talking about
Olympia Mutual Aid Partners, we will make sure the city of Olympia is also there, as they are our other contract for those hygiene and physical services on the site. And then Providence and any businesses that are impacted by the encampment.
And from Thurston County, you is what you're talking about.
Me,
Just want to make sure.
yes. You can come if you'd like.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And speaking of enforcement, with the changes in law enforcement response, as per the 13 new laws, some of which went into effect on the 25th, we are, as a homeless crisis response system, working to try to understand how this impacts shelters, encampments, and crisis response, neighbors, et cetera. So really appreciate the City of Olympia putting on an excellent 2-hour presentation. I was not able to attend live, but I am in the process of reviewing it and watching it. Meg Martin from Interfaith Works and myself had a briefing with Lieutenant Amy King from Olympia Police Department on the changes. We're hoping to invite Olympia PD and any other law enforcement agency representatives that would like to come to the housing action team to talk with housing and shelter providers to just really get questions answered around response. So just trying to wrap our heads around the impacts of those laws and changes to the way that law enforcement would respond to concerns from shelter providers, et cetera. And other than that, the Regional Housing Council meeting is this week on Wednesday, and that's from 4 to 5:30. It is a public meeting, so other than that, that's my update.
Commissioner McGinn?
No questions for me, thank you.
No questions.
Keely, the one thing that I had a chance to do, and I think you weren't here last Tuesday, but maybe you heard about I had reported that the city manager of Olympia was talking about Ensign Road and trying to find, and we were talking about the property that Olympia acquired where the hotel burned down. And the city manager had mentioned county property near the jail or near the family court / jail. And I was sort of scratching my head exactly what he meant by that. Because he mentioned paved lot. So I drove over there just to kind of scout it out. And, you know, there's the paved lots are the court parking lots. So that's kind of, doesn't make any sense. Then there's a square, there's like a smallish but square field, flat, right next to the back of the juvenile detention facility, kind of like where the garden, those fences are, there's gardens. Directly adjacent to that, and there's an access road that actually people could go. And then across that access road which is right across the street from the jail, is just kind of wild vegetation, and it actually slopes up and stuff. So I can't imagine that you'd have anybody there. So I guess looking at all of that property and trying to imagine what the city manager of Olympia was talking about, the only thing I can think about is this square field that I'm talking about next to the back of the juvenile facility. So I don't know if you've looked at any of that or if you've had discussions with them and you know better what they have in mind or what they might propose. I could see that being a potential. There's a bus stop right there, and it's flat. I don't think you could stuff all of the RVs from Ensign Road into that spot, but that combined with something, you know, on Olympia's property or something would be something that it wouldn't be crazy out of the gate just looking at it. So I'm just wondering what you know about all of that.
Yes, so in 2019, when we started looking at properties that could potentially be used for a second or a new iteration of a mitigation site or tiny home village or what have you, I did look closely at Mottman Road and at Martin Way and Carpenter Road. And so the Mottman property at the time, so I'm familiar with it. I've been out there. At the time, wasn't suitable for our purposes compared to Martin Way and Carpenter Road. So I think what I understand is that the city of Olympia sees it as a potential for, if you go in there, raise everything, get the vegetation out as a place to park vehicles. And I believe that that is what they are thinking. I know during the pandemic, there were conversations about a part of the unused parking lot at the time to potentially be used for park vehicles. But that was during peak pandemic time, sometime last summer. So that is what I know of what they are when they see that site, that's what they're thinking.
And so you're talking about the area that's not, that's basically really across from the jail.
Correct. It's just that big, what you just described, a big square of vegetation and hills and whatnot.
Okay.
I do think I've heard that there's a drainage problem over there whenever it rains around here. I don't know if that was ever fixed or not, but.
Yeah, there is some, when we were looking at this property, there's some issues with drainage because there's but I think Billy was making a point of not being suitable for the mitigation status at that point. I haven't been there for a little while. Maybe Kelly and I can go take a field trip and have a conversation. If there's a proposal to bring to the board, then we'll bring it for your consideration. If there's a possibility to partner with the city of Olympia. But it's always what is the fine line, because the 10 acres at some point is slated for a potential facility for the county at that time. And whether that continues to be part of the plan, it's all that what the board needs to consider if that is an option for you.
Ramiro and I were asked to meet with probably the same folks you met with at Providence, and they wanted to do that last week, and scheduling did not permit that, so that's coming up in another week and a half, I want to say. But there's definitely energy behind trying to address that issue on Ensign Road. Commissioner Mejia.
I do have some comments about the Mottman Road property. I mean, for me, the location is not ideal at all. I mean, the jail's right there, and family juvenile court is right in front, and then we have to consider the safety of the people going in and out of there. But also, there might be a bus stop, but after that, it's an industrial zone, and there are no services nearby. And if we go through the fact of removing the vegetation and leveling everything out, then I'm thinking this is going to be something more long-term if we're going to go through that expense of doing that. And if so, then I feel like we need to have, kind of that mindset in place that this is not going to be something that's going to be short-term, which I wouldn't want to do that, especially, I hate the idea of bouncing people around from one space to another, especially people that might have trauma and already have distrust. So I'm kind of really cautious about this property, or kind of precautious, not sure what the word is there, about this property. I'm just I see a lot of the cons that come along with it, and I'm struggling to see really any of the pros.
I guess I'll just follow up on that and say I'm a bit skeptical about that myself, because we have discussed some of this in the past.
I mean, I'm completely skeptical about the unimproved property. I don't see how you could possibly ever do that. I was more interested in the flat mode. I mean, the piece I'm talking about, it looks like the fairgrounds. It's like brown grass that looks like someone's mowed, and it's just a perfect square, and it's right there next to the juvenile jail. And I mean, and there's an access road behind it, so people wouldn't have to use the court parking lot or anything. I mean, you could pull RVs in there tomorrow. That other property that you're talking about, I don't see how you could, I mean, it would be Herculean, and even if we wanted to use it for what is being proposed, it would take so much effort. I mean, if that's what the comparison was, there was no doubt why Martin and Carpenter made a lot more sense, because it's, you know, it's more ready for that, something like that to be there based on just the grading and the everything. So anyway, there's two pieces of property we're talking about. I mean, really, if you look at it, and I agree 100%, I don't see how we're gonna get to using that unimproved property for something short term. It just it wouldn't make much sense to me, but I am interested in whether or not there's a larger vision of which that flattened out piece could be incorporated. You know, that would be something I would think about. Okay, thanks, Keely. Let's move to item 3, which is a review of this afternoon's board agenda. We will call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Vice Chair Edwards. We will contemplate the approval of agenda and board meeting minutes from last week. We'll have a presentation regarding Farmers Market Week.
Yes, sir. This is your opportunity to proclaim the week of August 1st, August 7, 2021 as a Farmers Markets Week in Thurston County. Amy has coordinated attendance, I believe, and do we have some names?
Yes, I received confirmation from Brett Warwick of the Olympia Farmers Market that he'll be in attendance. And I believe a representative from Tumwater's Farmers Market will be as well.
Through Zoom or through in person?
I think Tumwater will be through Zoom, and I believe Brett is planning on attending in person.
Okay, any questions from the board?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, very good. Then we'll have an opportunity for the public to address the board, and then we'll have a county manager's update.
Yeah, I will, during the public testimony, I will follow up with a couple of public testimonies that I need to follow up. So in more detail later on the agenda.
Okay. We've got 6 consent items. Item 3A is an auditor item, resolution for capitalization thresholds.
Yeah, Commissioner, this is a follow-up to the briefing you received on July 1st, 2021, related for you to consider passing a resolution changing the thresholds for the capitalized assets here in the county. The last time the board took an action to set those thresholds was in November 13, 2000, and it was a single item, a single threshold in terms of the value and dollar amount. This particular resolution is a little more in detail as to how you may consider setting those capitalized thresholds based on the many different equipments and infrastructure the county maintains. I can probably walk you through the details of that, but I think you have heard in a couple of occasions this particular item.
That's right, this is our third look at this. Any questions, Commissioner?
No, sir.
No, sir.
I see Mary Hall. Mary, are you here for that item?
No, she's for
Okay.
another agenda item here.
Okay, very good. So we're good on that. Auditor's office, like we had it covered. Item 3B is a treasurer item. Authorize the sale of tax title property via private negotiation to Hinkle Properties.
Yeah, this, you reviewed this item last week, Commissioners. And this property is located on east of the intersection Albany Street in Little Rock. And this is 0.16 acres. And the total cost of the total proposed sale price is $2,963.50, which includes fees and associated processing fees as well. You heard some perspective from the Jeff Cadman, the county treasurer, last week. In this property and the next property, which is nearby on item 3B, I believe, they don't have access. They don't have utilities nearby, and for the most part are encumbered by that. And For that reason, I believe is the nearby property owner, the next door property is the one who's interested in purchasing this property. And County Treasurer Jeff Cadden is here to have any additional questions.
So we're looking at 3B and 3D. You said they're close by each other?
3B and 3D is near is nearby as well. And 3D, if I may, is just to the east of the property I just described. This item 3D is 0.11 acres, and the proposed sale price for that is $8,863.50, including all the fees.
That was the map that we saw, right, with the, and it was like, kind of like
Right.
this, okay.
Jeff, good morning. Anything you need to know that you want to add in here?
Good morning, commissioners, and thank you for your time. Ramiro did give a really good overview of this. Like he said, these properties are very small and they don't have any infrastructure to them at all yet. And so they're considered not practical to build on. The adjacent property owner is offering to buy both of these properties, and they're offering to pay 100% of assessed value.
Commissioner Edwards?
No questions.
Okay, very good. Me neither. That covers 3B and 3D then. Let's go to 3C, COVID Local Fiscal Recovery Fund 1940.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner, for your considerations to create a fund where we can track all the American Rescue Recovery Fund, American Rescue Plan Act, and this early in the year we had the conversation with you that perhaps was not necessarily a need, but based on the new guidance by Treasury, it actually makes sense for us to create a fund so we can actually track every dollar, every cent the board may consider issuing and utilizing the ARP funding. So this is really what I call is the technical request, just to make sure that we put all the allocation, which has have received a little over 28 million so far, and we just bring that over to this fund and we track it at that level. And Robin is here to answer.
It is my understanding that Elizabeth has not reviewed the latest version of the resolution, so this needs to be moved to August 10th.
I was not aware of that, okay.
Okay, August 10th, removal of item 3C. Okay, then let's look at 3E, which will become 3D. And that is an appointment to the Hotel and Motel Commission.
Yeah, you had a discussion last week and the board agreed to move this item for your consideration. And this will be to appoint Mr. Adam Martinez to the Hotel and Motel Commission to the term of August 1st, 2021 to August 1st, 2024.
As recommended, right?
As recommended, yes, thank you.
Okay, everybody good? All right, then item 3F, which will become 3E.
Rob?
Oh, sorry.
I believe you have skipped 3D that will become C.
We
No,
would
we
cover
covered those
both.
with Jeff
Oh,
Jeff.
so sorry.
together, yep. So 3F will become 3E is the auditor's voucher list. Any questions from the board? Okay. And that's the consent agenda. And we'll go to department items. First is interlocal agreement with Jefferson County for elections facilities.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. I presented this item to you last week, and this is a cooperation agreements in case of an emergency during elections. At that point, you perhaps asked the question, why Jefferson County and no other counties? My response to that was that Jefferson County has the same system, election system that we currently have. It just makes sense for us to coordinate that effort. And this is during an emergency. Also, at that time, you requested the county auditor to be present, and that's why Mary Hall is here to answer any questions you may have related to this interlocal agreement.
Mary, you
Great,
have-
thanks. Yeah, thanks for giving me the opportunity. Essentially, this is an extension of our continuity of operations plan. And we plan on setting up these interlocal agreements with Jefferson County, Whitman County, and Adams County. These counties have the exact same configuration we do for our election management systems. So, for example, and I'll use Whitman just because it's a better example. For example, let's say we had a big earthquake here and our facility was not functional. We would pick up everything. We would divert our ballots to be delivered there. We would take our programming on a thumb drive and basically move our operation to that adjacent county. And it's, of course, an agreement. So the same thing would happen if something happened in Jefferson County, they got wiped out because of a tsunami or something. They could come to Thurston County and basically, use one of our machines and conduct their elections. Because elections, there are no provisions in law to delay elections. So this is something that we hope we never have to use, but it's something we think is important to have in place, just as an insurance policy and safety net.
Questions for Mary?
Yes, Mary, it sounds like you're planning on loading up everybody on a bus and going to whatever area too, right? I mean, everything would move. It's not gonna be electronically over the internet. It's gonna be done physically.
Yeah, we don't do anything over the internet.
Okay.
No, it would be physically moving ballots, equipment if we could get to it, and people.
You did use the term adjacent. I'm just curious about that. What, you mean any somewhat nearby county, you mean, right? That has the same connection?
We'd use the counties that have the same configuration of election management
okay.
systems.
Okay, thank you.
And you say that was Whitman, Jefferson, and which one?
Adam.
Whitman, Jefferson, and Adams.
Okay, those agreements are coming up, right? This is just for Jefferson.
Yeah, this is the first one, and the other two will be coming soon.
Is there any provisions that in state law that'll allow or disallow or require an agreement? I'm just wondering, it seems like everybody ought to be thinking the same thing at some point, from a statewide perspective.
Yeah, we tend to be the
You're ahead of the game.
trailblazer, but I would imagine that other counties will be setting these up as well. It's just an extension of our continuity plan, so,
Thank you for thinking ahead.
sure.
Thank you, Mary. Good on 4A. 5A, Central Services, bid award for Thurston County Corrections Facility Roof and Siding Repair.
You reviewed this item last week, Commissioner, and this is a result of a bidding process. It was held on July 12, 2021, where we received 2 bids to repair some roof related items at the Thurston County Jail. We have been spending a lot of time and effort in trying to fix that through the normal operations and maintenance. And it appears to be way too much to do the O&M at this point. So the board authorized to go out for bids, and this is the result of the bidding process. Last week, Robin stated to you that we needed to have a little more conversation as to what the dollar amount is. So the $318,882.69 is not necessarily accurate, but would like to request to the board. The total cost is $377,256. And we currently have a $350,000 budget on this, so there's a little bit higher amount. But the intent of fully fund this project is to address completely the issues that we have at the roof at the jail. Robin?
So the bids came in higher than anticipated for the entire roof. And the reason for that is just the general inflation that we're seeing in all of our construction projects. And our proposal, I have a $500,000 set aside for major projects that come up that has not been used. So I propose that we move $35,000 out of major maintenance to this project so we can complete the roof. So it's no increase in the budget overall. The funds are from the building reserve. They're available for this purpose. And that would get us the entire roof. And the dollar amount of this motion would be changed to $353,900 $956.04.
I thought it was 377 including
That
sales
is
tax.
with all the soft costs and internal costs. That'll give us enough money for the whole project.
Sounds like they're squeezing it a little tighter, huh?
Okay, so the new amount is 355.
That'll be in this motion for the contract. Yes, correct.
So this just needs to be updated before
I
this.
will update this if that meets with the board's approval.
That's, it was,
I'm okay.
Okay,
okay, so we'll change the dollar amount.
all right, item 6 is budget stabilization fund.
This is a continued conversation with you. The board has reviewed this item, and this is following up to the majority of the board's decision to establish a budget stabilization fund. This is a technical request to really establish the fund and the financial system. And for your considerations is for you to pass this resolution to create this fund. And again, this is a follow-up to the majority of the board's desire to establish this fund. And Robin is here to answer any questions.
This one also needs to move to August 10th.
Oh, she hasn't.
I'm so sorry.
But any questions on this one? No.
Yes, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So the decision to create it was made, this is the technical
Yes.
creating.
It just
the
creates
fund
the fund, yeah, in our
To
records.
accommodate the money the board allocated.
Yep.
Okay, any questions from the board?
I guess my only question, I mean, I know what I'm at odds with the board on this issue, but I'm just curious why the delay? What
Because
happened?
the resolution has been changed
Oh, it
and
needs to be reviewed.
Elizabeth needs to
Got
see
it.
it
Okay.
before you take action.
Okay,
Item 7 is public health and social services, 7A. Got several public health items. 7A is consolidated homeless grant and housing essential needs revenue contract. I see Tom Webster is present.
Yeah, Commissioners, for your consideration, the Washington State Department of Commerce would provide Thurston County with up to $9,159,000 for the housing and essential needs, also known as the HAND program, and the Consolidated Homeless Grants Program, CHG. They really is intended to serve homeless individuals and households. This particular contract with the Department of Commerce is for a period of July 1st, 2021 through June 30, 2023. This is related to the request for proposals. You authorized related to the Regional Housing Council, where close to 37 housing contracts based on the recommendations from the RSC were awarded. There were a couple contracts that was contingent to this, receiving this money, and those contracts will be awarded if the board authorized receiving this money from the Department of Commerce. Tom is here, Tom Webster, to answer any questions or provide additional perspective.
Anything?
No, sir.
no, sir.
Nope. No. We're good on that one.
Hard question, getting money.
Yep. We had some questions last time on the amounts and whatnot. Item 7B, amendment to Interfaith Works contract for non-congregate shelter bed program.
We also reviewed this item last week, and this item is related to provide what we call as respite beds for unsheltered individuals after discharge from medical care. We currently have a contract with Interfaith Works in the amount of, I believe, close to $600,000 or so to provide shelter. So this particular contract is really specific to provide respite support services with those unsheltered individuals who have gone through medical procedures mainly at the local hospitals, and after discharge, they don't have a place to go. So this particular contract again provides up to 6 respite beds, and that's the number of beds that you were asking last week, Commissioner. And this is this amendment to the agreement of $225,000 to provide those services. At this point is we're going to be using the recording fees. We have capacity in that, but this is really a bridge until we can get to the point of getting reimbursement from FEMA. Those activities are I believe, qualify for FEMA reimbursement for up to 100%. But we need to do a little bit of homework as to how we submit that to FEMA for reimbursement down the road. But in the meantime, we're in need to provide those services. And again, the recording fees, it just provides us a bridge until we can go through the reimbursement process with FEMA. Tom?
Yeah, that's a good summary, and I'm happy to answer any questions, but I don't have anything to add.
No, sir.
My question, I guess, would be, does Kurt have anything to do with this, because it's with FEMA?
We coordinate with Kurt, obviously, and there is a couple of steps that we need to take. The Doctor of the Malik needs to update a form that she needs to do a letter, and that is part of the process. But certainly it's a coordination with Kurt, since he is the FEMA expert.
FEMA expert, right? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Let's go to item 7C. Interlocal cooperation agreements for community development block grant, or CDBG, urban county entitlement funds.
Yeah, and this is the related to, as you stated, Commissioner, the urban development funding from the House and Urban Development HUD related to community development block grant CDBG program. So as a matter of perspective, Thurston County qualified as an urban county over the last few years. And through the process, we have managed this CDBG allocation on a yearly basis on a rotation approach. This rotation approach does not include the City of Olympia, because the City of Olympia qualifies as their own urban city and they have the direct allocation to them. This is how we have exercised the allocation of the CDBG funding in the past. It was a rotation basis. 1 year goes to the City of Lacey, the other year goes to the City of Tumwater, and then the other year goes to the county. And I'm the representative for the county, which I coordinate with the South County cities as to how the CDBG money allocation should be done on that particular year. On any type of CDBG funding, the board ultimately approves how that distribution of the funds will be, since the county is the fiduciary responsible party to manage those funds. This year provided a little bit of an interesting approach that the City of Lacey, due to the increase in their population, they were qualified as their own urban city, so they could qualify to have a direct allocation to the city without having to participate in this regional approach. At some point, it was a concern if the City of Lacey was to go on their own as part of the regular urban city, the county perhaps didn't qualify on the remainder population. And Tom provided an update that in fact we would have qualified even if the City of Lacey decided to go solo. However, I believe in the spirit of cooperation, the City of Lacey decided to remain within the regional context. And this particular item is for you to approve the interlocal agreements with the cities of Rainier, Yelm, Tenino, Lacey, and Tumwater, as well as with the town of Yokota, to start implement the same approach that we have done in the past. Jacinda Stelge is here to provide additional perspective or answer any questions or perhaps correct anything that I said.
Anything, Jacinda, we need to know from? No?
Commissioners, Romero did great, nothing to add.
Anything, Commissioners?
No, sir.
No, sir.
All right, no, this is good news, and we went through this last week. Thank you.
Hey, Tom, do you know if the City Council took affirmative action on this? Lacey City Council last week?
Yes, they did. They did. We received word from their assistant county city manager that they did take official action.
Great, thank you. Confirm.
Perfect. Okay, then that brings us to 7D, Interlocal Cooperation Agreement for Home Investment Partnerships Program.
So this is related to the previous item, and this is related to the interlocal agreement, the corporate agreement with the City of Olympia. And as a result of them receiving their direct allocation CDBG money, they also are required to have a interlocal cooperating agreement with the county just to make sure that all the CDBG efforts are coordinated. And those are where we have the Home Consortium under the Federal Home Investment Partnership. And we have exercised this agreement in the past with the City of Olympia. And this is a renewal of that in tandem with the previous items you just reviewed. Jacinta, you want to provide us some perspective on this?
This is just continuing our partnership with Olympia for the home HUD funding. Interlocal agreement Olympia did have some very slight revisions that Elizabeth did review and had no concerns or questions about.
Did we see this item last week?
Oh, I'm sorry, no, this is a new item,
I
thank
don't
you.
remember.
Sorry, thank you, I have marked in here, a new item. And the reasons they have new item is next week, the Board of County Commissioners meeting is canceled because there's no quorum, so we're moving a couple of items to this meeting, and some items were moved to August 10th. But if you'd like to move this to the August 10th meeting, certainly we can do that. Thank you for catching that.
Commissioner Mejia.
No questions?
I'm gonna follow the chair's lead on that. I don't have any questions per se, but.
I'm okay with it. No, I just test my own memory because I don't
Okay.
remember this.
Good point, good point.
So I want to make sure the board understood that we were seeing this for the first time because that sometimes prompts more questions. So I guess we're all good on that.
Thank you.
Okay, 7E, Thurston Mason County Developmental Disabilities Millage Levy Interlocal Agreement.
Commissioners, under RCW 71.20.110. Thurston Mason counties collect a levy of 2.5 cents per 1,000 valuation, both counties. That's what we call the millage funding. And the millage funding is intended to provide services, funding for administration for the Developmental Disabilities Program. This particular agreement is with Mason County, I believe, to continue the services and utilize this funding. Thurston County serves, and its county treasurer serves as the custodian of all the funds, and Thurston County provide the services through public health and social services. This particular contract has been with Mason County has been in place since 1980, and this is a renewal of that cooperating agreement. This proposal for you is for the period of 2022 through 2027. That will be a 5-year period. We have Annalise Cole in here to add additional perspective or answer any questions. You did review this.
Yeah, good morning, commissioners. I don't have anything to add. That was a great summary, Romero. Do you have any questions for me, commissioners?
I don't know.
No, sir.
So the word millage has always interested me, and I didn't know this word before I got involved in this line of work. And it seems to be, when you look at the definition of it, it basically just means property tax, period.
It is.
But it seems to be used in a more precise way when we talk about it in terms of board business. Like, is it a certain stratum of the property tax?
Per thousand. It just translates to per thousand millage. But it is the property tax, and it's because we levy the tax per thousand of value.
But you're right, though. I mean,
Why do we use this
it's
word in a certain
specifically,
context?
but I think in the statute calls millage funding.
It is called millage or property tax in state laws.
Yeah.
Both
Okay.
terms are used.
So
And
probably when it's in there, it's because it's making reference to a state statute that uses it.
It does, but all of our property taxes, including what goes to the general fund, is considered millage. It's just a term of art that has been used in connection with the DD program for years in the county.
Yeah.
Much like Commissioner Edwards calls the general fund the current expense fund. That's how it's referenced in state law. And both terms are commonly used. So millage is just another word for property tax.
So it's just telling us that this funding's coming out of our property tax collection.
Right, and in this case, it is Mason County's property tax that they are transferring to Thurston County to operate this program.
And it's very dedicated funding as
Oh,
well.
it's extremely restricted, yes.
It's mainly for development.
Don't worry, I've had the same question.
But we do so many things with property tax, like, I'm just like, why are we only use millage in these particular contexts? Should that mean something to me and
No.
not really? Okay.
No, it's just the term that's been used for years.
Okay, any other questions?
So related to that, I believe you and I have a meeting with WASAC this week to see if there's an opportunity. There's an effort the board explored a couple of legislative sessions ago to take some of this out of the regular levy and have their own standing levy, similar to the road fund and the medic one, all that is levies. So there is an opportunity to see if we can work with the legislature this next legislative session to take some of this out of the overall levy of the property tax to have their own. Good conversation to have with WASAC, and I think that's going to be a benefit to the county in the long run, not just Thurston County, but all the counties in the state.
Okay, very good. Let's look at 7F, Medicaid Transformation Year 5 funding from Cascade Pacific Action Alliance.
So this is a new item.
Yep.
And again, we move this item for your consideration. If not, if you don't feel comfortable, we can certainly move to the August 10th. In July 2018, Thurston County Public Health and Social Services submitted a response request for proposals in the Medicaid Transformation Project overseen by the Cascade Pacific Action Alliance, also known as the CPAA. The original effort is to address the triple aim to improving the health and healthcare of 7 counties within the Southwest region, which improves the health outcomes, improve case quality, and reduce the healthcare costs. This proposal is a renewal of this contract, which has a cost of $114,340, and this is coming from Medicaid. And the proposal is to extend half duration of the contract through January 31st, 2022 for the next 6 months. Chris Hawkins didn't have the chance to review and detail this item, but if you can provide additional perspective, it will be helpful.
Can't hear you, Chris.
Can't hear you. Can you unmute yourself? No.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Are you able to hear me now? Chris Hawkins, Program Manager with Thurston County Public Health and Social Services.
Yeah, go ahead.
Great. Yes, happy to answer any questions. Ramiro gave a great introduction to this particular item. This is our continued efforts with Medicaid transformation funds to provide some opioid prevention trainings in the community on both access to naloxone, which is the overdose reversal medication, as well as trainings on safe storage and disposal of medications, opioids being a particular focus. Then we also work on nurse-family partnership with these funds. Both those programs are supported by this. And then we also have a chronic disease self-management education effort that goes on under the name Living Well Thurston. And that is offering workshops throughout the year to help people who are living with chronic health conditions. So those are the 3 main project areas that we work on with these Medicaid transformation funds. And this would extend our ability to do that into 2022 with some hope that there will be a year 6 of this funding as well, if that is approved by the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare.
Commissioner Edwards had something?
I heard the county manager say maybe a region with 7 counties. Did I hear that?
That's
Yeah,
correct.
it's 7 counties.
I
Yeah.
mean, we have 3 county regions, we've got 5 county regions, we've got 7 county regions.
Good question.
And, okay, so this is 114,000 just for Thurston County out of those 7 counties?
Yes, and that is just the funds that are provided to Thurston County Public Health and Social Services as a partner to deliver these 3 particular projects, or in these 3 different project areas. There are other partners who do work in and serve Thurston County with these Medicaid funds, Medicaid transformation funds.
Okay, thank you.
Are you good to keep this item today?
Everybody good to keep this on this afternoon? Okay, yeah, good to go. He's good.
Thank you.
Item 8, Public Works. 8A, B, and C. 8A is a master interlocal agreement with City of Lacey for transportation services.
Commissioners, you reviewed this item last week, and for your considerations to approve this interlocal agreement with the City of Lacey for, is a cooperating agreement for roadway maintenance activities that we can partner with them when each jurisdiction needs any particular help from perhaps activities that we do not have. Last week, my councilman provided an example that we have traffic signals and we don't maintain these traffic signals, for instance, and we ask the cities who have a more robust traffic signal maintenance outfit. And that's really the gist of this agreement, is to continue the cooperating agreement with them. It's for a 5-year term. It has a maximum of $300,000 per year. That doesn't mean that we're going to spend all that. It provides the ceiling for that cooperation. If the need arises, we'll have a conversation with them. They will negotiate on the cost, and this agreement will allow us to have those activities in place.
Anything from the board?
No, we went over this last time and Matt gave us the nod, so.
All right. Good, then let's go to 8B, resolution adopting the transportation impact fee rate schedule.
So A, B, and AC are new, and it's related to the board's direction to bring those items for your final consideration. Item AB is for you to consider approving a resolution adopting the proposed 2022 transportation impact fee rate schedule for the traffic impact fee. And that if the board authorizes this particular approval, this will take effect on January 1st, 2022. The traffic impact fees, as you may recall, includes the board's direction for a reduction of 50% of the maximum defensible rates. It includes also a reduction of ADUs. And I will touch base on the next item because it's applicable to this as well, and which is related to childcare as well as the low-income housing exemptions. So when we discussed this item last week, I was going to bring 2 items for your consideration. This is the formal approval for your consideration of the new traffic impact fees. And the next item is for you to consider amending the code by setting a public hearing to exercise, I believe, the board's direction to have an exemption of reduction of 80% on childcare and low-income housing. So those 2 items are related, but we need to keep those items separate. So I guess I covered both.
Covered both, okay, so Commissioner Mejia,
No questions on this.
Commissioner Edwards.
This issue that we're dealing with here on B is still slated to be an increase from what we are doing today, though. Is that right?
It's
I
a
mean,
net,
it's a slight increase, 7% or something, but it
it's a
is
net.
overall.
Yeah, a net increase, because when you review, if you may recall, the many briefings, depending on the areas, there's in some areas decreases, in some areas increases, but the overall net increase is a slight increase.
And I want to remain consistent, so that's my opposition to that, is the increase.
Okay, then 8B, 8C. Now, I remember the timing of this has changed a little bit.
So what?
Am I right?
Yeah, so this for your consideration is to waive the 20-day public notice and go with the required 10-day minimum. And for you to schedule a public hearing on August 10th, where you receive public testimony, again, for amending portions of the code, they will provide an exemption for childcare and low-income housing for up to 80% of the traffic impact fees. And for your consideration, we have two items in here, two actions. One is to close the public hearing, and depending on the public testimony, you may consider adopting this resolution to provide those exceptions. And those exemptions, if the board approves on August 10th, will take effect right there. You don't have to wait until next year.
Okay,
I'm a little confused,
Okay.
because I thought with the public hearing that we had was in regards to this.
So the public hearing, you had on the traffic impact fees on the fees itself.
Okay.
But I believe there is a new law that took place on July 25th that allows the board to exercise your legislative authority to exempt childcare up to a reduction of up to 80%. There is part of the statute that you can go up to 100%. But if you go up to 100%, then the developers who have childcare, they need to set aside 25% of their facility for families and children who have subsidies from the state.
do we have to authorize that option, and are we going to be authorizing that option?
Yeah,
Okay, and
up to 80%, that's the proposal, no 100%.
we're not gonna do this extra if you set aside certain number of, and why not?
Because the burden will be on the provider. And I think it's 80% or 100%. So 80% is no strings attached based on the new law. 100% is strings attached, that provider needs to set aside.
But it'd be their choice to do that.
Yes, but my understanding of the new law is either you go to 80% or 100%. So there is no
Oh,
latitude.
you can't authorize both doors to open?
Right.
Okay, I thought we could give them the option,
That's what I thought too.
but, yeah, well, 80's better, 80 no strings attached is better than the other probably for a lot of,
Right.
but I didn't realize it was an either or.
If you like to further investigate the nuances of the law, I can work with Elizabeth if that is the case, but.
I guess what prompted my question was, and I'm not being critical, because I know we were trying to do this as fast as possible to serve the public. But I know that we had talked about having it set up to where our thing would take effect like the day after the law goes into effect, and that, which I think was July 20, like today. So it just seemed, was a public hearing always part of this process, or did we learn that we needed a public hearing and we weren't sure we needed one, or how did that timing get
So
pushed back?
I really had a discussion related to the public hearing and had a discussion with Elizabeth. It was for me more about, it was a risk-driven decision. Because this is a new law, really you could probably implement without a public hearing. But I think it's prudent, I believe, for you to hold a public hearing since you are considering amending the code.
Okay.
So it is really a delay of 2 weeks, but I think from the process point of view, it gives the board a little more robust decision-making process, if that is the right word.
Sounds good. Okay, go ahead, Commissioner.
And they have to be getting a subsidy to do the 100%, 25% of them have to be getting a subsidy, or is it based on income?
So what they need to, my understanding of the prescription of the 100% is those childcare centers, they would like to exercise the 100%. They have to set aside 25% of their capacity for those families and children who use a subsidy from the state.
So it's subsidy, not based on income, because some things are kind of based on.
Yeah, that's a side. So
That's
I don't
just
know,
one.
The subsidy, the state provides us a different process.
Okay,
which
no,
families
never mind.
and children can apply.
80% with no strings is probably easier.
Okay, then that'll be,
And the county engineer and Matt also are here to answer any questions related to the last two items. Sorry,
The only thing I would add to the county manager's comments,
if you
which
can introduce yourself.
I'll even come up to the table.
yes, sir.
There you go.
My name's Matt Eltman, Thurston County Traffic Engineer. The county manager described it very well. The only thing I would add to it is that if the exemption for the low-income housing and early learning facilities are approved, that would also be applicable to our current rate schedule as well. So it wouldn't just be for the 2022 schedule. So as soon as that ordinance is signed, we could implement the rate schedule.
Right,
Thank you.
okay. Thank you, Matt.
Yep.
We're good on that, and then we'll go through our standing items in under 9, and that will be today's agenda, quite a few items of business. So then, item 4 on the morning's agenda just is a notation that next week's Tuesday board meeting and agenda setting, I believe, is canceled, is that right?
Yes, we don't have a quorum for the first 3 days of next week.
Okay, so let's just get started, and we'll shortly have a break, but let's just kind of get started here on looking at August 10th agenda, which is item 5 of this morning's work session. Meeting called to order at 2, pledge of allegiance to be led by Commissioner Mejia. We'll look at the agenda and board meeting minutes. We'll have a presentation from Public Works regarding introduction of Public Works employees. And anything to be said there?
Jennifer Walker, the Public Works Director, will be here to introduce Kim Burnett, and she is the new Public Works Administrative Services Manager. And also Nick Bemis. He's a current employee, but he has been promoted to the Road Operations Supervisor in Public Works.
Okay, that'll be good. County manager update, and then consent items, we have A through D. The first item is auditor office domain registration.
For your consideration, Commissioners, and the county auditor, as you know, he has been extremely diligent in making sure she has a lot of check and balances in protecting the integrity of the election office. And she has been coordinating with the Homeland Security in this case, and there is an opportunity under the Government Act of 2020 related to cybersecurity and infrastructure security that allows local governments to change the domain of their websites. And instead of, for instance, to go with Thurston County Auditor.org, they would like to go and exercise to be a .gov. So that would be a Thurston County Auditor.gov. This has a $400 cost, and I think that's covered by the county auditors. And I don't know if Mary's still here or not. So in just this is an item from the county auditors to request the board to authorize to change the website domain on this.
How does this fit with the project that we're currently contemplating of redoing the entire county website?
It could probably complement down the road. When we get into the county website, we may want to exercise the same approach as opposed to go with Oracle GOB and see this a little bit ahead of schedule of that, as I believe.
And don't we currently use co.gov.us, yeah. Law.us.
US. Yeah, so we don't use the gov.
It's .gov.
Oh, we have .gov.
Yes. They're just under a different system, is why.
Thank you.
Yes. So we would still have .gov once the new website happens.
You're
And then
Megan
it would
Porter.
put everybody underneath it.
Saying you're Megan Porter.
Sorry, Megan Porter, Public Information Supervisor. Yeah, so So everybody would have the same domain once we move to the new system. Right now, there's so many different systems that it's not all the same, it's not under the same domain, is what, so. It would all be fixed with the new website. Should that move forward?
For the website, then why would we need to make this purchase?
Good question.
That's a harder question.
Just review the item last night.
Good questions for the next couple of weeks that we can work on.
Is the motivation related to security or?
Yeah, that's the intent, yeah.
So you'll maybe bring back some information on the next
I'll follow up with Mary to get additional perspective.
agenda setting. We'll keep that there for now. Yeah, I'm sure there's a good reason for it, but we'd like to hear a little more.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Is that okay, Commissioner?
Yep.
All right, and then 3B, Human Resources, Civil Service Resolution for Revised Classification Specifications.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. The Civil Service Commission has gone through the process of assessing some of the job classifications within the Sheriff's Office. That is, the Civil Service Commission is the one who review, and provide recommendations for you to consider revisions of the classifications. In this particular case is for you to consider adopting the newly revised Financial Operations Assistant, Legal Assistant Supervisor, and Crime Analyst classification specifications. The action for you today is only for you to consider approving the new description of the job classifications. This item will not tie you to a financial action later on. The Sheriff's Office will be submitting as part of the 2022-2023 budget for you to consider moving individuals within those classifications to a different level of pay. But that's a different decision the board needs to make during the budget process.
Yeah.
This is only for you to consider approving the new classifications on those positions that I just described.
No questions.
Is this like a job, just like the job description update?
Yes, that is the job description, because the Civil Service Commission goes and assess what the current positions they do, and as any job in the county, over time tends to do something different than was originally intended to do, and that is probably the result of that. And that is really what Maria is going to come back with you on the overall class and comp project to a larger county. That's intended to do. It's really to revise some of the job classifications that we have in the county, because the activities within those classifications have evolved since the last time we revisited those. So they're a little bit old, and this is an attempt to bring those up to a current level of performance in a way.
Who actually does this work? Is it some staff person in HR that?
Is the Civil Service Commission.
In this case, it's.
In this case, and that is the commission who sees everything related to the Sheriff's Office, and Commissioner Erwas can further elaborate. He has way good, more experience than I do in the Service Commission, Civil Service.
Okay, then let's go to District Court item. This is 3C, resolution removing end date of position.
I need to follow up with the District Court on this, but this is related to the Blake decision. The District Court submitted a request to continue to have this position to help deal with the impacts of the Blake decision. They submitted a request to have a permanent position, but from the perspective of addressing the Blake decision, it's just a temporary aspect. So I believe their intent is to have this position to be a 3-year term. And that probably aligns with the rest of the positions that you might be considered related to the Blake decision. So I need to work with District Court, because the recommended action needs to have that in place. Because just removing an end date of a certain position becomes a permanent position. And I don't think that is the intent in dealing with the Blake decision. So I need to work on this, but this is really a position related to the impacts of the Blake decision on district court. And I will work with the court just to make sure that we're aligned related to there is a 3-year term. It's not more than that.
I mean, I'd like to hear a little more about how a probation counselor relates to Blake. I'm not seeing the connection.
Well, they're saying, when I spoke with, I just met with them, and Frankie said that the reason it relates to Blake is because they're gonna have to be dealing with those cases from now on. And just because, they're gonna start getting that caseload for misdemeanors and.
Because drug possession's a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
But that has a sunset date in the current state law. And I know that people anticipate that that will change, that was to buy time for the legislature to do something. But the board can certainly take action at that time.
To see what they do.
Yeah,
Yes.
committing to a permanent position related to Blake at this point, I don't think is adequate and appropriate.
Right, their request in the budget had been a permanent position and the board chose to put an end date on it.
So when does this end?
In 3 years.
I think there's an existing position they like to utilize and the end date is this year and they like to extend it for another 3 years.
No,
What's position number?
the budget amendment, in the last budget amendment, when the board funded Blake costs, the district court had asked for a permanent position and the board imposed a 3-year end date along with all of the other positions. We had this exact same conversation.
Okay, so, okay, I understand now. So what the district court is requesting is for the board to consider lifting that previous
The end
decision. So I don't think I will recommend for you to remove this item.
Just go ahead and remove it for now.
Yeah.
Till we get,
Because if they request a permanent position, I believe they need to submit that during the budget process.
I was gonna say, why would that be?
Thank you for the clarification, Robin. That brings back. So we'll remove this from the agenda.
Okay, then we'll look at the auditor vouchers when we get there, and it's 10:25, let's take 10 minutes, and we'll be back at 10:35, pick up with item 4A.
Good banana bread. Yeah.
Yes, really good.
Romero, you need to turn the thing on, please. And your live, Commissioner.
Okay, welcome back. It's 10:36 and we're in the middle of the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners agenda setting work session here on July 27th. And we left off with item 4A on the August 10th agenda, which is, if you're tracking along with our work session agenda, we're in the middle of item 5. Reviewing next, or it's actually, it's gonna be in 2 weeks, the board meeting on August 10th. And item 4A is resolution and call for sealed bids for Thurston County Family Justice Center hydronic repairs.
For your consideration, Commissioners, is to authorize Central Services to go and secure bids to secure the contractor to do some work on the Juvenile Justice Center located in 2801 32nd Avenue in Tumwater. The particular elements of this construction is installation of heating water systems, isolation valves, and to facilitate isolation and draining portions of the HVAC system. Also, isolation valves that must be installed in the current system as per approved design by the designer. All isolation valves may be easily accessible, and also all finishes needs to be building standards. If the board authorized to go ahead with securing the bids, the next step will be staff will come back for you to consider awarding the contract to the low bidder. The funding for this particular project is through building reserves. And if you have any questions, I know Chris is here, but certainly Ms. Leader Robin is here to answer any questions.
I'm just a curiosity issue on it is, how old's the building?
FJC, gosh, that was probably 15 years ago, if not more.
Oh, I thought it was more than, I thought it was a 20-year-old building.
Chris Helmer is here.
Do we know this bit of equipment that needs to be fixed? Did it survive its expected life expectancy?
So I don't know if Chris would know that or not.
This is Chris Helmer. I'm a project manager with Central Services. The answer to your question is the system itself is not being replaced. There have been leaks in the recent years that have had to be repaired, and the current system does not allow isolation of particular parts of the system. Therefore, the entire 5,000 gallons has to be drained, and that's a multi-day process to drain the system and make the repairs. This will allow maintenance to come in and isolate parts of the system while keeping the rest of the building online while they make the repairs.
I have a question. What is hydronics?
Hydronics is the heating water system for the facility.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I'm good.
All right, thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
Let's look at item 5A, interlocal agreement for common interest and joint defense.
Yeah, Rick Peters has been working with the local jurisdictions to have a common interest joint agreement for legal services. And this is an agreement between the cities of Lacey, Tumwater, and Olympia, as well as the city of Tenino and Young. And this is related to in response to the new law that is applicable to police and fire departments. The gist of this agreement, that is not a financial transaction, is allow for the exchange of information between jurisdictions related to legal service and cooperation. And this really has their umbrella. There is a lot of nuances on this agreement that perhaps obviously confidential and privileged communication has to be transmitted in those terms. But really what allows is a mutual cooperating agreement among the many jurisdictions that we have right now. So if you have any questions, certainly I can take those down and try to come up with the answers to your questions. But and again, there is not a financial transaction on this. It just allows the umbrella to have this cooperation agreement. Rick Peters has been working on this agreement with his counterparts on the cities, and this item was brought to my attention for your consideration.
That was my only question about legal.
Yeah, Rick Peters has been working on this.
And there, I'm just not quite getting what it is they're trying to accomplish. I mean, they need this agreement to be able to
Exchange
share data,
information, yeah.
and that's gonna help them do what exactly?
So there's a lot of, nuances on the new law that affects police and since we're talking about as a region, it is important to all the jurisdictions meet the same intent of the law. Because by having an individual police department, fire department operate individually may not be effective. That's my understanding. And this agreement allows for that wider cooperation in terms of exchanging data. There is not a financial transaction on this. It's just making sure that each party with this agreement agrees to cooperate in terms of exchanging this data.
And my follow-up question to the chair's question is, where's the sheriff? Because I just don't, I mean, where's his relationship here?
Rick represents the interests of the sheriff's office.
No, I know that, but I mean,
Thurston County's not called out.
yeah, that's all. I mean, it just doesn't say anything about the sheriff's office.
We can add if you like the
I think it ought to be in there. I mean, I'd actually like to hear from the sheriff, have to get a nod from the sheriff, because it is a law enforcement issue.
I'll follow up with that, yeah.
Okay.
What do you think, Commissioner?
My questions got asked. So no, I do not.
Okay.
I'll follow up. Thank you, sir.
Item 6A, under Community Planning and Economic Development, is a proposed interlocal agreement renewal for voluntary stewardship program.
As you may recall, the board authorized receiving funding from the State Conservation Commission to provide services to the voluntary stewardship program. And this particular agreement is the next step in the process is to renew the contract that we have with Thurston Conservation District to utilize this funding of $150,000 to continue to support the voluntary stewardship program. This contract goes from July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2023. So and again, this is the second step in the process from the first step the board took to accept the money from the State Conservation Commission early in the year. And Chris Chapeau, I believe, is here.
I'm here.
Jennifer is here to cover this item if you have any questions.
I don't know that we have any. Everybody seems on board. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, item 6B is request for proposal for real estate services for the Thurston County Habitat Conservation Plan.
Commissioners, for your consideration is for you to authorize the department to issue a request for proposals to receive, to secure a contractor to provide real estate services related to the Habitat Conservation Plan. This is a proactive approach. We're extremely confident that the Habitat Conservation Plan, HCP as we know it, will be approved hopefully by the end of this year. We still have our fingers crossed. But also we need to make sure that we are proactive in securing, identifying land that actually meets the criteria of the Habitat Conservation Plan. This particular proposal is to secure the services of a real estate expert that will allow us to really search all the properties available that meets the criteria of Habitat Conservation Plan in the county, so we can be strategic as to how we're going to be able to purchase those properties and move along. There is a close coordination with the real estate services and public works, but there's a need for professional services that will help us go through this process. Jennifer is here. Certainly can provide additional perspective on this very important issue.
Is there a dollar amount?
This is a request for proposals at this point with another.
I mean, just roughly, what do we think about?
I don't have those figures right now. It's a request for proposals and it would be, this is Jennifer Davis, Community Planning Manager and CPED. We don't know how often it would be like having a realtor on retainer to help us when necessary to find willing sellers of properties with mitigation value. So I can try to work with Chris and get maybe a range, but right now it's just putting out a request for proposals, so I think they'll probably provide us what they think we should charge them.
I guess I never hurts to ask, I guess, but I'm wondering about the dollar amount that we're thinking about tying up here, that's all.
So is this somewhat of a fee for service?
The fee for service,
Right.
so it would be dependent on the activities that they provide and the services they provide.
So, I'm sorry.
No.
So, as I understand, it will not be a contract, they will just pay an amount for a contractor who will be providing a ceiling, similar to some of the similar contracts. And depending on the frequency and the magnitude of the request, then we negotiate on the fee, and we secure the services as needed on a need basis.
Like they might offer to do it for $20 an hour, or $40 an hour,
Yeah, depending
whatever.
on, depending on their proposal.
And then we'll have somebody to go to?
Yeah.
To get it done quicker? Okay. Rob?
I defer, go ahead.
Don't we have someone like Kidder Matthews, don't we have a contract with them?
Well, that is going to be my question. Why wouldn't we use the county's current real estate contract?
And the Kidder Matthews contract was extended for another year, right?
Right, while we go to bid for a longer period.
What do you think about that, Jennifer?
Well, not being familiar with all the skills and expertise of all the real estate agencies out there, I think we can definitely consider that and maybe interview Kidder Matthews to see if they have the skills and abilities. We're looking for someone with rural landowner relationships and experience to really help find these properties, so.
I think my suggestion will be for you to consider keeping this item, Jennifer, the opportunity to see what Kidder Matthews, because I do agree with Jennifer that perhaps the set of expertise that we're looking at very specific to determine the type of land, the type of soils, and very specific as to how those particular properties can meet the intended mitigation efforts of the HCP.
I have another question. How much funds do we have available to purchase lands?
Gosh, the last time we looked, it was
So if you're talking about conservation futures, what we have earmarked in the future is 500,000 per year connected specifically to the HCP. But I know that CPED's intent is to ask for additional funding from the fund specifically for land acquisition. So that'll be part of your budget considerations this fall.
Do you remember how much we have in the fund? for this?
The fund has a substantial fund balance. I shouldn't say, without looking, I can look it up quite quickly though. Just give me a minute and I'll have the right answer, not just a.
Are we still working on getting some benefit from that property down at Tenino? That was.
The Burnett property?
Yes.
Yes, we have a good conversation with the Washington Fish and Wildlife, I believe.
We did. We are in talks with both Washington Fish and Wildlife. We're also bringing this concept to the Sentinel Landscapes Partnership for additional potential partners to secure a portion of that property for HCP. We have lots of irons in the fire right now that we're trying to acquire properties so we can hit the ground running when we get issued that federal permit.
Are any of those irons related to Rocky Prairie? And there's a
The
particular
Port of Tacoma
subspecies
property,
that
potentially, yes.
needs to be addressed. And my understanding from US Fish and Wildlife is that that property is one of the few that will meet the needs of that particular subspecies. I don't
That
know.
particular service area, yes, we are in discussions around that property
I
as well.
think it actually meets the needs of all the species listed of concern.
It has multiple species benefits.
Fund balance. So if the department spends the full amounts allocated this year, which is roughly $1.7 million, then we anticipate an ending fund balance this year of approximately $7.5 million.
Based
So
on
a
the previous stockpiling of conservation futures.
Correct. So that the amount allocated this year covers a few projects that the board has approved, plus $1 million in habitat acquisition. And again, if that money's not spent, it simply stays in the fund. And during the budget process, you'll have an opportunity to decide how much you want to spend next year and the year after that on acquisition.
Okay, we went through a very protracted debate and process trying to figure that out, and I thought we decided that and built that into the HCP funding structure that we submitted. So why would we want to go back and redo that?
So what we built into the HCP funding structure was a commitment to $500,000 a year for the life of the HCP as part of its implementation. And that, again, is to try to share the costs of mitigation with citizens who need to be covered under the incidental take permit and will also be paying mitigation fees.
Right.
So that's done. However, we have additional needs to create a conservation lands portfolio ahead of that issuance of that incidental take permit. So we need additional funds up front out of the Conservation Futures Fund to purchase lands in our key service areas to cover the species. So that the first time the public walks in the door and says, I want coverage under the permit, we actually have land and credits available for them to pay into.
I thought that's why the board stockpiled $7.5 million.
Yes, so the budget requested.
Appropriate it.
Right.
Oh,
$7.5
that's what it's for.
That's in the fund
Okay, that's a lot
balance.
easier
That is
decision.
the entire
So the $7
fund
million
balance.
is the whole
Right.
I
fund
understand.
balance that
Right,
perhaps in
that
the
you
future
just-
includes some potential grants that you may exercise as well as this.
That's right, you'll want to take a look at the whole fund in the context of
Right.
all of the requests that are coming forward.
Sorry, I saw a hand.
No, I raised it, but then it got answered. So.
So related to this item, Commissioners, my suggestion is to keep this item on the agenda, give Jennifer the time to see if Marcus can provide what the clinical services she's looking for, and then go from there.
And you're also working with, Jeff had a replacement over at USDA. Some new lady took over when Jeff retired, and he was doing the acquisition for access and farm.
Who is we had a meeting with the real estate.
There's a new person over there. I hope we're communicating with them, so I don't.
I'm sure we are, because I think they're part of the Sentinel Landscapes.
Yes, they are.
Conversation,
Yeah.
so yes, we're communicating with USDA folks as well.
Anything that we can accomplish at Rocky Prairie kills a lot of birds with one stone. No streak-torn larks, but
Protects a lot of.
it does a lot of things at the same time that we've been trying to do.
So there's a sparrow now.
For an update on Rocky Prairie, I mean, I've been working really close with Josh and sending him information. I've met with some people at DNR, and I also have been talking with people at the Port of Tacoma about their willingness to sell. And so I know that their Port of Tacoma is, last time I spoke with them, they were excited at the prospect that the county is considering. And I told them we were in the process of maybe gathering partners because we cannot buy the whole area just by ourselves. And so they are very open to it. So I feel like the conversations are ongoing. I want to thank Jennifer and Josh for their work on this because they've been assisting me with this so much, and I appreciate that help. Here's Josh.
Josh heard his name mentioned.
Josh heard his name mentioned.
He's been listening.
We're still talking about it?
No. So how close are we to send a letter of intent?
You'll probably see the draft today.
Okay, because we're working actually formalizing the county's intent to, for the purchase of this property, so
Well, and I also, Joshua Cummings, Director of Community Planning and Economic Development. Thank you for this item, lots of different pieces of the puzzle, irons in the fire, as Jennifer was saying. I just want to say her team has done a great job on going out and being proactive and getting land acquisition. And it's hard to kind of separate the two things, the land acquisition and the mitigation. And so the acquisition piece, getting ourselves ready for when we do receive a permit. We did start that process back in February or March. To reach out to landowners that had high value property. We're using that same process to have a next step, likely coming from the board or the county manager, and reaching out to the Board of Tacoma. But as Jennifer said, a letter will be coming to the county manager likely today. So we're excited and appreciate your ongoing support.
Do you mind sharing that in fact we already purchased a property, I believe, under this process? I think that's.
We
good.
did. We purchased a property just shy of 5 acres in South Thurston County that is abutted against an existing pocket gopher reserve, so provides additional protection. So we do have one property under our belt in addition to our other.
Was that the property in Rochester that?
It was the Binford property. I would have to look up the location. I have lots of properties swirling in my head.
And then to answer Commissioner Edwards' question, the representative that replaced Mr. Sotek is Roy Lean, comes at night at United States Department of Agriculture, NRCS, which is the National Resource Conservation Service. And her and I sit on the Signal Landscape Partnership, ELG, the Executive Leadership Group, as the co-chairs of that group in partnership with JVLM, USDA, WDFW, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And so part of our goal, as Thurston County's goal as the local representative, and you were there at one of those very first meetings, Commissioner Edwards, is to be that kind of on-the-ground ear that finds those properties and brings it to the larger group. And Violet Prairie is definitely one of those, what has been formerly referred to as the Burnett property. It's now sold to WDFW, or in the process, therefore. And it's called the Violet Prairie. And then the other prairie is Rocky Prairie, which we've just been talking about. So lots of good opportunity, lots of good partnerships in the community with the feds and the state.
So Josh, let me just say a couple of things, tell me if I've got this right. So we always heard that, we didn't know exactly what credit, like, okay, we bought this 5 acre property, Jennifer said, like, the credits that we get is still sort of a scheme that has to be approved by U.S. Fish and Wildlife. I mean, we proposed an approach in our HCP. We haven't gotten a formal approval of HCP, and I know they kind of vary. You and I have talked about how they kind of vary HCP to HCP. It's not just a, throw a scheme. I mean, they're very carefully and crafted to the particulars of the area and what you're trying to protect and everything. So it sounds like we don't completely know how many credits a particular property like the one we just purchased might provide. But can we look at what if our plan is proposed, can we say, if that becomes blessed by U.S. Fish and Wildlife, how many credits that particular property might generate? Is that something that?
Yes, so the scheme is the plan, that's the habitat conservation plan. And in the land acquisition, we can determine a range of the credits that we can get from that specific area. So taking the 5 acres, for example, we know that if we don't do anything to it, we just let brush grow, we're gonna get less credits. If we, however, use the mitigation funds to mow it, to maintain it, we're gonna get more credits. So that range on that 5 acres could be less or more, and that's the plan. And so what U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service says is, what we've committed to in our plan is purchasing the property and then also lifting the property with mitigation and getting more credits out of it that then we can provide to applicants who come in and want to build stuff at the BDC counter. So it's kind of this circle, and we get to kind of choose our adventure. How many credits do we want out of this 5 acres? It depends on how much the board decides to spend in mitigation and uplift of the 5 acres of physical property. Does that help? And that's the plan. That plan then hopefully gets approved, and then we do those actions in the coming years.
What is the range for that 5 acres?
Gosh, it's, I want to say it was at least 8 mitigation credits, just because of the quality of the habitat that was there. It all relates back to quality of habitat. So you can actually have more credits on fewer acres. And the calculus is in the draft HCP. But again, until that's approved, we don't have that final calculus in place.
So the 8 credits is as is, the property as is, and with the little improvements, we can probably get a little
We
additional
may
credits.
be able to,
Okay,
yes.
exactly.
And we committed, I think the last time we checked in on HCP, to come in every month or so and have this kind of a conversation. So we're kind of right on target, but we'll schedule a time to do it again because there's, like Jennifer said, lots of different irons in the fire that we're trying to work at the same time, including an ordinance that you'll have to approve, including the budget that Robin has referred to, including the acquisition. A lot of stuff happening.
Okay, so we took this item and turned it into an ACP
Good.
briefing, but that's okay.
Why not?
It's interesting stuff. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, 6C, also under CPED, request for proposals for hearing examiners / administrative hearing officer services.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. The current contract with the hearing examiners as well as the pro tem hearing examiners expires on December 31st, 2021. And this particular proposal is to authorize the Department of Community Plan and Economic Development to issue a request for proposals to secure the services, again, for hearing examiners and pro tem hearing examiners in the next few years. So the department's been proactive on this prior to the expiration of the current contracts. And the result of this action, if the board decides to approve it, the department will come back with proposals for you to consider awarding the contract to the selected hearing examiner.
Jeremy Davis is here.
Jeremy,
Jeremy Davis is here to answer any questions. I was looking at you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jeremy Davis, Thurston County Community Planning and Economic Development. And thank you, County Manager Chavez, for the summary of the item. I don't have any additional information to add to that at this time, unless there are further questions from the board.
Is this just for the same services? Because I thought at one point we were going to try to be adding capacity, like adding additional people or part-time people. Is this for that, or is this just kind of a re-up of the main contract that we always have? That, if that makes sense, I don't know if I'm not articulating myself.
It absolutely makes sense, sir. And actually, we already have both a hearing examiner and a hearing examiner pro tem on contract. The hearing examiner, of course, is Sharon Rice, and the current pro tem is Steve Casso. We are making full use of hearing examiner Rice and are making use of Casso's office's services with Judge Sheldon on an intermittent basis. In 2020, we actually cleared 36 decisions with the current hearing examiner Rice. The proposed RFP would take proposals for both the hearing examiner services, the full appointed one, as well as a pro tem. So we'd have both under contract to provide services to the county over the next 2-year period. We, of course, go out every 2 to 3 years for competitive bidding to allow us to seek the best price for those services. And this is just for that same thing. We did this back, I believe it was the summer of 2017. In 2020, we did extend the current hearing examiner and hearing examiner pro tem contracts for the additional year, which allowed us more time to seek these proposals this year and to continue with our services uninterrupted during the COVID-19 emergency last year.
So our current hearing examiner will have to submit a proposal and be considered along with whoever else. Okay.
Yes, sir. That would be part of the competitive bidding process. And actually, the current hearing examiner has been asking when we're going to be issuing this. So we'll be notifying her as well as any other interested parties that will provide us with their information when we post this online and publish the notice in the newspaper.
Questions for Jeremy?
No, sir.
No, sir.
All right, thank you. County Manager.
Hey, Jeremy, can you describe who is going to be the review team to go over the proposals?
Sure. So I worked with the Public Health and Social Services Department on the RFP, as well as the Department of County Public Works staff on it. And I'm just pulling that up here now. So we're going to be working with Public Health and Social Services. So we will probably have Leah Davis, who was a current planner and And this is just proposed right now, sir. So she used to be a current planner under the Development Services section of Community Planning and Economic Development, and currently works in our Community Planning Division as a long-range planner. We'll also have someone from Public Health and Social Services serve on the interview panel, as well as someone from Public Works and myself. We'll take all proposals in, score those proposals given the criteria in the draft RFP that's before you today. And those will be scored. We'll call in the top candidates for a full interview, and those out of one of those top candidates, we'll put forward one for board consideration at a future regularly scheduled Tuesday afternoon meeting.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Jeremy. Let's go to 7A, Human Resources Contract Award for Third-Party Workers' Comp Administrator.
For your consideration is for you to award a contract with to Stop Claims Corp. And as a matter of a little bit of a background, back in 2020, we issued a request for proposals, was published, and the pandemic hit. We can blame everything on the pandemic. We just didn't carry through the request for proposals. So this is for your consideration to award the contract, the result of that particular process. And it has an annual cap of $72,000. And again, this is a fee for service type of contract. We will utilize this company as we see the need of reviewing workers' comp claims here in the county. Any questions?
What's the past history on this?
Oh yeah, we have utilized similar contracts since 2014. Yeah, and it's really related to review L&I claims.
And what about, what was the past expenditure?
It's just about the same. Yeah.
So that's going to be adequate?
Yeah, this is going. I think it's adequate.
And we have money left over sometimes, right?
Yeah, if we don't use it, that carries over.
It does automatically carry over, okay.
Did you just ask whether we've used this outfit in the past?
I don't believe this outfit has
Stop Claims Corp?
Yeah, I think this.
Carol Renberg from Risk Management is here.
Oh yeah, I didn't see you. Go ahead, Carol.
Hi, thank you for the time today. So we used a different third-party administrator as of 2014, and it was a 5-year contract. So when that contract was coming to an end, we decided to go out to an RFP to see if we could improve either pricing or service, and we think that we have done so. And so that Stop Claim is the new service that we're proposing that we use.
And just to confirm, that's a fee for service. There is not like we're gonna be awarding this contract for $72,000 an annual basis. It's just the ceiling of the contract.
Well, it's actually a monthly fee that adds up to 72,000, whatever that is, divided by 12. And the same was true for PCI as well. The prior, it's just it was a higher amount. But we do pay this every month because they handle all of our work comp claims.
I'm good. Carol says it's good. Must be good.
Do you know where this?
Thank you.
Do you know where this company is located?
They're in Everett.
Commissioner Mejia, anything?
Yeah.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Carol. Sorry, I didn't
Thank
see
you.
it on the screen.
Oh, no problem.
Item 8 is Public Health and Social Services Interlocal Agreement with the Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Administrative Services Organization for CGTA funds.
Commissioners, you may recall maybe over a month ago, you took an action to receive money from the state related to the Criminal Justice Treatment Account, also known as CJTA, from the state Washington Healthcare Authority. And the CJTA allocation of funds is required by law. That has to be allocated for programs decided by a consortium of stakeholders. And as a result of that process, they have identified $75,000 to the Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Administration Services Organization to provide services associated with the CJTA for the period of July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. And again, this agreement is with the Thurston Mesa Behavioral Health Organization services to receive the money so they can provide the services associated with this funding. Carrie? Henning is here. I did see you on the screen.
Yes, hi there, Carrie Hennon, Program Manager, Public Health and Social Services. That was a good summary. Just a little more specifically, the $75,000 would fund housing services, so case management and rental assistance. You've heard about this in the past, but there's an existing program that the ASO oversees that's funded by the treatment sales tax. This CJTA funding just enables them to serve more people, slightly different definition of eligibility based on the criminal justice treatment account statute, but it works pretty well with the existing TST funded program.
Any commissioners?
I guess we better not question it too much.
Sounds like we're good, Carrie.
Thank you very much.
Right, yeah. We'll see that on the backside. Public Works. 3 items. 9A is project prospectus and local agency agreement for the 2024 County Road Safety Project.
Yeah, the Department of Public Works, as a result, the county has been awarded a total of $2,840,000 of federal funds to perform highway safety improvement programs in 2014. Originally, this award was $2,556,000, which required a 10% match by the county. But since the Federal Highway Administration has issued 100% investment on this particular program, and that is why the total of $2,840,000 is for your consideration. The project will improve roadway safety on various county roadways throughout the county, which includes the installation of curb signing, clear zone improvements, rumble strips, speed feedback signs, and other roadside improvements. The county and Public Works has been extremely successful in implementing the safety program. And this particular item is to authorize the Public Works Director to sign the local agency agreement, which is a formal document with the state to receive the money so the staff can start working on this particular project. It is intended to be, again, performed in 2024. And the county engineer might have someone is here to answer any questions.
I believe
Brian Meyer was up.
Oh, Brian Meyer, go.
Brian, welcome. Commissioner Edwards got a question for you.
What's the distance between the rumble strips and the house?
So yeah, this is Brian Meyer, civil engineer with Thurston County Public Works. So we are maintaining 500 feet separation between any house and the rumble strips, center line and shoulder rumble strips.
Y'all heard that, 500 feet. So when I bring stuff in where it's 204 feet or something like that, you'll know what I'm talking about, right? Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Anything, Commissioner Gia?
No, sir.
All right, thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
9B, interlocal agreements for 2021 solid waste management plan and hazardous waste plan updates.
This is really related to the overall solid waste steps the board has taken related to the contracts and the resolution number 15957 related to flow control, the board passed. So the next step is to review and revamp the in-local agreements that we have within many different jurisdictions. Early in the year, we passed similar in-local agreement with the City of Olympia. This particular item includes the agreements with the cities of Lacey, Rainier, Tenino, and Yelm, as well as the County of Dakota. That really relates to the solid waste management plan. Within the local in-local agreement also includes the flow control ordinances that each jurisdiction will implement as we move along. This has been a very coordinated effort, has been taking a lot of effort, and I have to give credit to Karen Weiss, who is with us this morning, to carrying us through within many different jurisdictions. She has participated in many briefings to the many city councils, and this is the result of the very long and arduous effort. Karen?
Thank you, Romero. So that's perfect. Karen Weiss, Thurston County Public Works. I am pleased, Commissioner Minster, to say that we are bundling 5 of these together today. And we will have one more to follow. In fact, I had just received the City of Tumwater. That is the last remaining jurisdiction that would sign on to the solid waste management plan. And then just as a future look at what's coming in the future, we will then, after the ILAs are passed, be bringing forward the actual solid waste management plan to the board for approval before it goes to the Department of Ecology for final confirmation. So with that, any questions?
So the motion will be revised to include Tumwater?
I can get that to you, yes, if we'd like to do it all together.
I think it will be adequate if there's a consensus with the board, just to have a single item. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Sounds great.
Any questions from commissioners?
No, sir.
All right. Thank you, Karen. Let's go to our final business item for this agenda, interlocal agreement for hub junction maintenance.
Just about 6 years ago, it was a joint effort to celebrate the implementation of the trail systems here in the county. So a little bit north, if you can look in East Olympia, where the Home Depot is at, see if you envision where that is in East Olympia, Phones Road. Right there, if you drive Phones Road, there is a trail crossing. That trail is the trail owned and operated by the City of Olympia. If you continue to the east, I know this because I run this almost every weekend. If you continue to the east, it intersects the Chehalis Western Trail that goes north-south, and also intersects the Lacey Trail system that goes to the east. So 6 years ago, it was a great effort to celebrate the joint effort of the 3 jurisdictions by building this roundabout. This is what we call is the hub, the junction hub. So if you ever travel that area, it really is a nice roundabout with a little bit of art in the middle to celebrate the completion of that. But since that was completed, the maintenance of that particular infrastructure has been lacking because it's right in the middle of the 3 jurisdictions, and seems to be everybody has to different perspective who is responsible to do what in maintaining this particular roundabout. So this particular agreement, what it does is consolidate and agrees with all the 3 jurisdictions, the City of Olympia, City of Lacey, and the county, as to how we're gonna be able to maintain this particular infrastructure in the long term. And Marcin is here to cover anything that I missed and perhaps provides additional perspective.
No, I think that, Ed Marcin, Parks Maintenance and Operations Manager, I think that County Manager Chavez summed it up pretty well. The only thing that I will add is that the area for quite a while now has been subject to a lot of vandalism to the landscape itself. The grass in the area is essentially been carved up. There's been, some rock sculpture art that has, impromptu been added. A bocce ball court has been carved into the dirt. The benches have been vandalized. Graffiti is an issue, and it's pretty consistent. So the cities and the counties, we got together, discussed how to better maintain that area, which then led to actually assessing who had ownership and on what level based on property lines in that area. So that's where we ended up with this, and the agreement is somewhat commensurate of property ownership in the area and levels of staffing.
What's the dollar amount?
There is no dollar amount. We would actually be, as opposed to so we do our trail rounds multiple times a week. We would be through this area and we would be maintaining this area. This agreement limits us to Mondays. Monday is our scheduled day to empty trash, deal with graffiti, and any other small items in the area, the cities of Lacey and Olympia would then take every other day as far as maintenance goes.
Okay, that's interesting. I was envisioning like alternating years or something, but we're just gonna do Mondays.
Daily basis.
All right. Well,
What have you been doing up until now? What's been happening?
So at a minimum, we're through that area on Mondays and Tuesdays. And then it depends on the week and the workload that dictates whether we're through there during the week. And on any given day, it could be an overflowing trash can to a tremendous amount of graffiti, vandalized benches, bench repairs, whatever needs to be done is what we've been doing just to keep the area presentable. We had previously had conversations with the cities of Lacey and Olympia maintenance, and they were doing what they were doing on the days that they did it. And I don't know what their schedule is, but this does reduce the responsibility for us in that area greatly.
and then how do we handle like bigger projects that can't be done on a Monday? Like, let's say grass is all torn up and we decide we wanna reseed an area of grass or whatever. I mean, how is that gonna get done if between the three jurisdictions?
So what that would be is if we came through there on a Monday or any other day that we're coming through, and it would be, let's say there's a huge amount of graffiti that would take hours for us to try to remove. The conversation has been that we would be in contact with the cities and let them know that there's a large piece of graffiti, that they have specialized hot water pressure washers, that they could come out and handle that. So it defines us as doing small graffiti, emptying the trash and picking up debris or litter. Any large scale landscaping, then that would be passed on and to the cities of Olympia and Lacey when they're better equipped to handle those types of jobs.
Okay, any questions?
I don't know if my seatmates know this or not, but I don't know the ratio now, but it seems like we have about 5 people in parks. I think Lacey's got about 40. And I don't know what Olympia has, but it seems like we pick up a large portion of the activity with a very small number of people. Anyway, it sounds like you're working on a better deal, Ben, so thank you.
Thank you, commissioners.
Good.
Thank you, Ed.
So we'll have standing items under county manager and then a 3 p.m. public hearing, which is a public works item. And this is what we just discussed related to the, actually we'll be this afternoon setting that hearing.
That's correct.
And then this will be the manifestation of that regarding the traffic impact fee exemptions. And so I don't think anything more needs to be talked about there. Board of Health, we're not gonna have, Shelley and I were not able to get a,
So what I'm planning to do next week is to circulate individual draft agendas for you to provide individual feedback
on Board of Health.
on the Board of Health. When we have a draft agenda, so you have the opportunity to see the items that might be coming up on that.
Okay.
And then you officially will review the agenda and any suggestions that you may have on the 10th morning.
Okay. Proclamations and awards. I don't see anything coming up.
Good morning, Amy Davis, Clerk of the Board. The draft proclamation for Farmers Market Week is included in your packet. Again, I have confirmation from Brett Warwick of the Olympia Farmers Market that he will be in attendance, and I believe a representative from Tom Waters Farmers Market will be here as well to jointly accept.
We already covered that. All right.
I have an item on proclamations and awards. I got contacted by a member from the Elks Lodge, and they were wanting to have an honorary proclamation For the Elks Lodge, 186 for their 130th anniversary, where they'll be celebrating it this year from October 9th through November 14th. I have sent the information to Amy Davis so she can start working with them, but I just wanted to bring it to the board's attention. This is something that has been requested.
Yes, I have.
Is there, I'm just curious if there, because of the number of years or,
Yeah. Our 130th anniversary is this year, so.
I know we have a lot of groups that do a lot of things, a lot of good things. Just wondering, if it won't overload our calendar at some point in time, depending on what we accept and do. That's all I bring up. I'm fine.
We'll take a look at it, I guess. We can have that discussion when we see the, more of the details.
And he has a chance to provide a draft.
Okay, fair enough. Let's look at advisory boards and commissions, item 7. I see there's a new application for Ag Advisory Committee.
Yes, there is one application received from Mandy Surrey for the Agriculture Advisory Committee. I've just received this application and it has not yet been sent to the Ag Committee. There are currently no vacant seats. However, I plan to inform Mandy of the some terms expiring next year, and that we will keep the application on file. And I plan to share it with the Ag Committee as well, so they can also keep it on file.
Okay, well, I mean, if there's no vacancies, then I don't know that. Is that the practice, is to just send all applications to the Ag Committee?
Yes.
There's no opening or not. But the board, I mean, the board obviously won't be considering.
I'm wondering if I've got to wait until there's a vacancy for the committee to review the applications, because at this point, what would be the point?
Yeah.
Just informative to let them know we received the application. I'm not aware of Mandy's current involvement with that committee, if there's any, so just so they would be aware. But I'm happy to hold off on sending it.
You'll be informing this applicant that there's no vacancies?
Correct.
Okay, well, there's nothing else really for us to do about that.
No.
It's always good to have applicants for county boards. Okay, then that takes us to PIO check-in, item 8.
Good morning, Commissioners. Megan Porter, Public Information Supervisor. I just have one quick update for you. This week, you'll see a draft joint news release with U.S. Fish and Wildlife to announce the next stage of the HCP, which is going to be the environmental impact statement and NEPA-CEPA work that's going to be going on. There's a public comment period. So we are working with U.S. Fish and Wildlife to develop that draft. You will have a chance to review and provide your feedback before that goes out, which we hope to have that out next Monday. So more to come on that. Pending any questions, that's what I have for you this morning.
Anything for Megan? No, okay. Briefing or public hearing decisions pending?
Nothing is pending, Commissioners.
Let's go to item 10, which is a number of commissioners' items. Blake decision is up first, LFO reimbursement discussion.
Yeah, Commissioners, you, during the budget amendment process, you approve some funding in some positions as to how we're going to be dealing with the impacts of the Blake decision. What I was missing in that conversation, I believe we didn't have all that information, is the LFOs and the reimbursement of the LFOs, as that is one of the impacts associated with the Blake decision. So Robin and I believe Tony Sharp from the clerk's office are here to provide additional perspective related to the LFOs.
Right, and I believe our clerk is also with us,
Oh,
Linda.
I don't know.
So.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Great, thank you both for joining us today. As Romero said, you're very familiar with the Blake decision at this point, and that the work that the county is doing. In our budget amendment, the board appropriated funding for the administrative costs of beginning to clear the Blake backlog. And as Romero said, one of the pieces we didn't have at that time were estimates of the cost of the LFO reimbursements. Last Thursday.
That acronym for the.
Legal financial obligations. And these are the amounts that defendants paid to the county. The funds were dispersed to various state, county, local funds, depending on what the payment was for. And now we are beginning to get court orders to pay them back. And Linda can talk a little more about that, but this is a heads up for the board. You have the preliminary estimates. They are preliminary, they could change. And I would say that the handout that you were given earlier this morning, you need to flip. The top number is Blake only, the bottom number is Blake plus other. So the courts will determine what portion of the Blake plus other actually gets paid back to the defendant, if I'm understanding this correctly. But a very preliminary estimate is that the county could have to pay up to $10.5 million over the course of the next few years as we clear these cases. We anticipate that the state will reimburse the county, but to date, the state has not indicated the amount that the county will receive for LFO funds. So we do need to start paying them back. Linda can talk more about that. And they're beginning to get court orders now. We have to start paying them now, even though we don't have state money coming in yet. And we're going to have to do that out of the general fund because we have no other fund to be able to pay them with. I will be coming to you very soon with an appropriation request so that the clerk has funding authority to be able to pay make these payments. What we'll do is to determine how much will reasonably be paid this year. The bulk of it will probably be in 2022. So you'll see appropriation request in your budget this fall for the bulk of this money, but they'll need some of the money this year to be able to start to make the payments. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Linda.
So I do want to add that the Clerks Association is currently working on, I just read an email this morning related to an additional request with firmer figures statewide that will be given to AOC to include in their supplemental budget. I will go ahead and let Tawny discuss any additional questions that you have related to this. Thank you. Tawny, are you here?
I'm here. So do you guys, is there questions that you need me to answer? The numbers that are before you are actually pretty accurate. They may change a little bit, but not a lot. So the 4.3 million is pretty much for sure that all of that will get refunded. And as Robin stated, the 6.1 million will be dependent on what part of the case was Blake and what LFOs are determined to be part of Blake versus the other charges that were on those cases.
Go ahead.
Robin, can this be sent over to, I know we've been working with Representative Dolan and Taylor on this. Can these figures be sent to them?
Right. I'm working on some information for our legislative delegation, and I will be including this.
Do we know for for the orders that where LFOs are being refunded, do we know that amount? Or is there something that we can prepare for like this year? Because 48 million, that's the total of cases. I don't believe it'll be all this year.
So that 48 million is the total that was assessed. The balance, so the third column that says possible refund that's the amount of LFOs that have been paid by the defendants and dispersed. And so we would only be possibly refunding no more than 10.5 million.
And would you guess, Tawny, maybe $1 million this year?
I would say that's probably a high estimate, but I believe $1 million would more than cover this year. I believe this is going to take probably well into 2023 before we get through all these cases. Because as you can see, there's 17,000 plus cases that have to be heard. The Blake only are easy for the court to do because that's just a straight out vacate and refund order. But the ones that have other charges as part of their case will take a resentencing of each one of those cases. So that will take quite a bit of time to get through.
I have another question, a follow-up question, Tawny.
Sure.
So for that Blake plus other cases, I mean, the LFOs that were assessed, does that include the other charges as well, or just?
Yes. So that would be the total amount assessed. So that for the Blake and other charges, the 29 million is the total assessed in that case, even though maybe only one or two of the charges as part of that case are Blake. So that's why we can't say exactly how much will get refunded in those, because depending on what the other charges were and what those LFOs consisted of, the court will reassess what those amounts are.
Okay. Thank you.
So overall, this is less than I had feared, considering that we're going all the way back to 1971, 50 years worth of cases. But it's still a large amount of money for the county. We will be carefully tracking the payments in our system so that we can bill the state. And whether or not the state legislature appropriates money for counties, I know that we're working hard on that. WASAC is working on our behalf. The Clerks Association, I'm sure the courts, the county auditors are lobbying for appropriate funding for this. So we have a lot of voices going to the legislature saying that they have to fund the county's costs. In the meantime, we're on the hook.
Did they already appropriate some money for this and it just hasn't been figured out how it's getting to us and where, or have they not dealt with this at all?
Some money has been appropriated by the state legislature for counties. Some of the money was appropriated to the administrator of the courts, the Washington State Administrator of Courts. There are concerns with the allocation method that the AOC is proposing. However, they do have some money. And some money has been allocated specifically for public defense to the Office of Public Defense. Thurston County has received the initial award from the OPD, which is approximately 1/4 of what we think it's going to cost us this year to address these cases, much less the long term. So I think the legislature's made a down payment on what they need to come up with.
But out of that chunk, did they say this, like out of, wasn't it 79 million total or whatever? Let's just pretend it was.
Yeah.
Did they say, okay, this 10 million is for LFOs? Or LFOs is just one of many things that you've got to divvy up this 79 million?
I think this is one of many things.
So it's not clear.
That's true.
There never was specific on the legislative authorization to be line item by line item, but I think it raised a concern is the administration of the courts has been no upfront as to how they're planning to disperse the funds that is intended to the counties. The Washington State Association of Counties, WASAC, we submitted a letter to the AOC asking them to give us a perspective as to how and when it's distributing those funds to the counties. So I don't know where we are, perhaps it's a continued conversation on that, but that is a funding. Commissioner Mejia and myself attended in Robin, a meeting with Representative Taylor, and she's spearheading the effort on the next legislative session to start really having the state take the responsibility of the financial impacts that this particular decision has from local jurisdictions, particularly the counties. But it's not guaranteed because a lot of competing interests on the legislature.
You mentioned a quarter of the money we've received or something like that. What kind of dollars have we received from the state?
I would have to look that up, Commissioner. I don't have that amount at top of mind.
And do we have that in some kind of a fund, special for this? Where would that be?
It is a grant award that has come to our County Office of Public Defense, and the revenue will be deposited into the general fund as an offset of the cost of our defense, our public defense office that the board has appropriated. And you may recall in the budget amendment, when the board appropriated funding for administrative costs, that we assumed that we might be so lucky as to see half of that reimbursement in revenue from the state. And so the initial amount that public defense has received is already assumed as revenue in the budget.
I guess I just, as a statement, I guess is from where I'm from on this, is I would like to see an accounting of all the money that the state gives Thurston County to pay off these type of awards as a separate funding list, I guess. And I will vote, now, and I don't know how many seat mates are gonna go on this, but I will only vote to pay off what obligation the court says we have to pay off out of that fund. I am not gonna vote for any reimbursement to any individual out of our general fund ahead of time. I just wanna make that perfectly clear. I think it's the state's obligation that we're talking about an RCW that was declared unconstitutional, not a county ordinance. Now, on the other hand, if there was a case that developed because of a county ordinance violation and then led on to something, I could see that. But I'm not gonna give away the taxpayers, I'm not gonna vote to give away the taxpayers' money without first submitting a bill to the state on each claim. And I don't know where my seatmates are, but I'll be darned if I'm gonna vote to give our hard-earned tax dollars to a bunch of deadbeats. That's where I'm at, just so you know.
If I may.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's have a robust discussion.
I think we do need to have a robust
Okay.
discussion, and I would agree with you, Commissioner, that the county should not be on the hook for these costs. However, the clerk is receiving court orders to make these payments, and the county is at legal risk for not promptly paying what the court has decreed. So we put the county at even greater risk if we don't make these payments. We are absolutely tracking every dollar in both staff effort and time, and we will be tracking these payments. We've set up specific codes. The only legal fund we have to pay it out of is the general fund. But we are tracking and we will be billing. Even if the state does not appropriate sufficient funds or the county received grant award from those funds, my plan is to submit invoices to the state for extraordinary expenses. We will bill the state. We absolutely
Okay,
will.
well, I mean, I just want to make it perfectly clear, I'm not gonna vote to spend any of our taxpayers' money until after there's been a billing, maybe a denial of that bill, because then I'm hoping that we can sue the state to get the money, if we need to. Because I think the whole thing is kind of a scam.
Let me tell you how much. I'll take a moment to look up the amount that has been awarded to the county so far. I know that it's less than $100,000. I think it's substantially less.
Well, I'm all for paying that out, if the state's giving us that money.
That money is specifically for the cost of public defense, not LFOs. We have received no money from our LFOs.
Well, then I'm not gonna vote to expend any money to pay anybody off.
And I feel like this has been like our frustration, and that's why I started these meetings with the legislator, because you know, it was first, the concerns were first raised up, basically that the counties were gonna end up with some of these bills at the WASAC meeting. And so I don't know if you've seen the back and forth letters that have been going on between WASAC and AOC. So, you know, I wanted us to be proactive and be sure that, you know, we're doing the work. Our departments are, you know, getting stretched thin because they're doing what they need to do. And it's not fair, right? That just because we're ahead of the curve, we might not get what it's due to us. So I agree with you, Commissioner Edwards. You know, I believe that the state should be paying for this, especially if money was set aside already for the legislator and we're still not getting any of that, or we have not even seen any of that. And we're waiting, and yet the work continues to pile on. And now there's court orders, you know, for those LFO payments. So I'm going to see if you know, when Robin sends those stats over to the legislator, if maybe a letter from the Board of County Commissioners saying, you know, this is a great need for us and we are doing everything we can, and therefore we should be refunded these costs. I'm not sure if my other two seatmates would be in support of that.
Yeah, I'd be in very much support of that.
So at this point, the county has received just over $69,000. And
But none of that was meant for reimbursement.
that is solely for public defense.
For the
And
cost of
we have
figuring it
no
out.
indication so far at how much we'll receive from the AOC. We do expect to receive more money for public defense, but I don't know how much more or what the time frame for that is. And
This is, to me, the most
going to cost us
ultimate
millions.
unfunded mandate situation, and I don't think we ought to bend over for these folks. Just the way I'm gonna put it bluntly.
And I know, I agree with the perspective. There's an unfunded mandate. The state, I believe, has the obligation to compensate for the impacts of the Blake decision, not just the LFOs. But unfortunately, the county is literally left holding the bag in the meantime.
Well, let's see where it ends up in court against the state.
And it's the risk the county has. I believe King County and Homish County has already facing a class action lawsuit related to LFOs. And do we want to get into that position? Because at this point, it's a court mandates. The clerk's office is trying to implement. Whether it's a denial of no following the court order, that's a different conversation the board needs to have. But in principle, I totally agree with you.
Well, I'm gonna be more than principal, just so you know.
So, but also I believe we have the obligation to reduce the risk the county has. So, my 2 cents.
If we didn't have the money in the general fund, what would we do? What,
We are
cut the clerk's
incredibly
office or something?
fortunate to have, currently we have a
Well,
robust fund balance and we should not be penalized for that.
We can send them some of the CARES money or something if you want. I don't care what you do, but I'm not
Well,
spending
we
it.
can't do that.
Well, I'm not gonna vote for anything to give deadbeats money. That's just all there is to it.
Okay.
Just say no. I want everybody
I
to
don't
know
think
that.
there's a decision point
So
today,
that
so.
The letter, I didn't hear.
I'm with you.
What is the letter you?
The letter is
To
when,
whom? I'm sorry.
when we sent it, the data that Robin is collecting from the departments,
Okay.
to send it to Representative Dolan and, Representative Taylor. Just saying, you know, this is a great need for our county, and
So you're
we
saying
should-
in
we should-
addition
yeah.
to this number, we add this number plus what we think the staffing,
We know how much we've estimated for staffing costs over the next 3 years. We know how much the state has appropriated, and it is a fraction of what we need. And we've yet to receive any indication from the AOC, Administrator of the Courts, on how much Thurston County will receive.
so summarizing all of that into a letter to and the two legislators, you're identifying they're part of what?
So Representative Taylor is working directly with Administrative Office of the Courts, and setting kind of the guidelines for this funding.
She appears to be working with the prime sponsor of the effort to get this funded. She appears to be a key member of the legislature in this effort. So, and Representative Dolan invited her to this meeting and introduced us.
It's way more powerful, I mean, and, you know, it's way more powerful to have real numbers than to go, this is gonna impact us, you know?
Right.
And that, you know, anyone can say that and exaggerate. To have the actual numbers to provide, I think is something we should do.
Right.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking to do it at the same time when all this,
When I have the data.
when all the data is collected and sent, because I know the data is being collected across different departments and offices.
Right. Representative Taylor was extremely interested in how many cases have we estimated, what's the cost, what do we think the impact to the county is, how many cases have we cleared to date? There was a little list of things that she asked us for.
She specifically asked for the data, maybe the letter will be addressed to her specifically, and CC the, not just Representative Dolan, but all the legislative delegation.
Right.
I think it would be.
And Representative Dolan did request that we send the information to all of the members of our delegation.
Okay, sounds like we're in agreement on that.
So next step.
Let's go to item then 2, Shoreline Master Management Plan.
Thank you, Linda and Tawny.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, this is timely to have a little bit of an update related to the shoreline management plan. This is a docket item that has been in the books for quite some time. And the staff has been working diligently with the planning commission. And I believe staff suggested a recommendation to the planning commission this past Wednesday, 2 days ago, or last week. Last week, as to how we can probably move forward this particular item, really in concert to what I believe the board would like to see this item being completed as soon as feasible, because it has been quite some time, years in the making. So at this point, if you can provide an update, that would be great.
Excellent. So Joshua Cummings, Director of Community Planning and Economic Development. Thank you, County Manager. It's a great summary. First thing I'd like to say, Jennifer will provide the details on the time and the actions, but I wanted to take this moment to appreciate the clear direction from the Board of County Commissioners in working through these difficult topics and the volunteer work of those that sit on the Planning Commission. As the County Manager relayed, it's been multiple years and we've had multiple iterations of Planning Commission members, so there's been turnover on this big project that we do need to complete. You may remember that Jennifer Davis was at one time a member of the Planning Commission before she came on board here at Thurston County. So we're lucky to have her have kind of two perspectives, and for her staff, the members that have been facilitating this conversation with the Planning Commission. It's a difficult topic. It involves lots of different perspectives on how we manage the natural environment with the built environment. And I just wanted to recognize the direction is clear to keep going from the board, as it has been, and that our facilitation from the members of Jennifer's staff and Jennifer herself has been highly acceptable and appreciated. In terms of the actual update, I'll leave that to Jennifer.
Yeah, Jennifer Davis, Community Planning Manager. So we've made significant progress this year. We're basically feeling like we're on the cusp of the next step in the legislative process, which is for the Planning Commission to set a formal public hearing on the draft the Shoreline Master Program update. Once they take that action, and that's the action we requested for them to take last week, but there were not enough votes at that time to make that action. So we're going to try again on August 4th. But what we're trying to do is get us to public hearing, because once we have a public hearing date set, we will launch our public outreach campaign, which we have briefed the board on previously. Multifaceted, includes online open house, opportunity to have staff come and speak to your interest group, questions, comments, story map, interactive map, direct postcard mailing to about a third of the shoreline property owners who are most directly impacted by proposed changes in the draft. So we have a lot teed up by our education and outreach professionals and GIS professionals, and we're ready to get there, and we're trying to get several weeks of this public outreach so we can be as inclusive as possible and reach as many folks as possible before that public hearing. And so that is where we are. We are hopeful that the Planning Commission will be able to set a public hearing on August 4th. We are shooting for a mid-September public hearing date, and that would allow 4 or 5 weeks of outreach and online open house opportunity.
So Jennifer, a couple quick questions. How long has the S&P topic been engaged?
Gosh, many years, 4 or 5 years, I want to say. 60 planning commission meetings where this has been an agenda topic. 60. So there's been a lot of work by different planning commissions and very thorough work by the current planning commission to really do a line-by-line review of this draft. And they are already hearing from the public at each of their meetings during their open public comment period by a few folks who are very closely monitoring this. What we want to do is open this up to the whole of the Thurston County community to get as many voices in the room and really collect that formal public comment on the draft. And it is a draft, and there are options in the draft for different aspects of should we do it this way, should we do it that way. And we built that in on purpose so that we can get public feedback directly on those options. So there's a lot of work to be done even after public hearing to respond to public comment, to respond to what the Department of Ecology might say about our draft, because as you know, they have approval authority over this Shoreline Master Program, so their input will be important to get. But we feel like the draft is in a really good place to move it forward for formal public comment.
And in the public outreach strategy, has the Planning Commission been a part of those discussions?
Yes, we've shared our public outreach strategy with the Planning Commission. It's somewhat outside their purview to have direct, an influence over public outreach, but they have provided advice throughout the process. And we've taken that advice in, including the wording on a postcard that's going out. They reviewed and were satisfied with wording and made some changes to it back in December of 2020. And so we're moving forward with that postcard language to let people know what's going on. Yes, and they've seen iterations, examples of our interactive map that we have that is going to be online for folks to see what might be changing for their shoreline designation and comparing current 1990 shoreline designations to proposed changes.
And so the last recommendation that staff provided at the previous Planning Commission meeting was in honor of the direction that the Board of County Commissioners has provided to keep this topic moving. The staff has gotten to a point where, as Jennifer said, we've had narrow comment from the public, but now we believe that the draft is ready and has had plenty of review for a larger swath of the public to be engaged. And that's what that public outreach strategy would do. But we won't start that until a public hearing is set by the Planning Commission.
Question? Go ahead, Commissioner. You mentioned that you're going to do a mailing to about 1/3 of the affected property owners. Why only 1/3?
Well, not the effect. So there are approximately 11,600 and some odd shoreline parcels in Thurston County. I believe the latest number I got from our GIS specialist was 11,694. In the proposed draft, things are only significantly changing for about 1/3 of those parcels, either because they're coming into shoreline jurisdiction for the first time because of updated data around lakes and streams that qualify for Shoreline Master Program, or one of the proposals in the draft would adjust the regulations affecting their property. For example, there might be a proposal to either expand a buffer from what it is currently in the 1990 rules. And so we want to make sure those people know because they will have direct impact. And then the other category would be where your shoreline designation is changing to something more protective. So right now your shoreline designation is rural conservancy, and then you're going into a natural shoreline designation based on the science and inventory and characterization that was done. And that comes with it more protective, environmentally protective regulations. So all of those people with those significant changes are being direct mailed a postcard, and then the whole of the county will be alerted to this via our social media campaign, our web mails, our publication of notices in local newspapers, and again, direct mailing to lakes management districts. We're making drafts available directly to those folks to review, and we have additional ways to reach stakeholders.
In an effort to create efficiency, to be direct with people that are going to be impacted, and to save taxpayer dollars, we wanted to have a targeted, specific approach on the postcards, and then other multifaceted strategies to reach the rest of the county. And so the staff has worked really diligently to make sure that we're honoring the tax dollars that we have by not having a big blast of postcards to anybody that's got water lapping up on their shores. It's going just to people that are going to be affected by the draft potentially, and then a wider strategy to make sure that everyone else is aware that this is happening.
Is there any kind of assurance that those other 2/3 will not be affected? Is there assurance that they won't be affected? And then there's no point in notifying them, I guess. But the doubt is that they will be affected. That's what I've heard from people monitoring this. So is there assurance that the 2/3 will not be affected?
Well, I think anyone with shoreline property are affected in some
possibility of being
way.
affected, right?
Maybe not with increased regulations, but maybe with increased opportunities, increased stewardship opportunities, increased information about their shoreline designation and what it means. So, there's people positively affected and people who may face some more regulatory impacts, which are the ones we're targeting with the mailing. But
okay.
And we had to, Commissioner, not to interrupt, but we had to draw a line somewhere. Everybody in Thurston County
I want to
is
question that.
affected by the draft,
I want to question
whether they have shorelines or not.
If this is a shoreline management issue, I think that every property owner that has property in Thurston County and is paying substantially more tax dollars for those properties that are affiliated with water in one fashion or another, I believe they're entitled to whatever the cost of a postcard is, to be notified that we are pending in the legislative arena with activity that's going to affect them. So that's my concern, that everybody, if we want to be an open government, everybody should be notified that has the possibility. What's it going to cost? 65 cents a card or something by the time you do postage and printing?
So if 11,694 are receiving the postcard, do we have a cost on that?
no, but I can get those numbers. We don't have a budget necessarily in
Exactly.
CPED
That's
to
the
cover
next-
the cost
That would be
of
the next topic.
of direct postcard mailing to all folks.
We're stretching the budget as it is to make sure that we do this.
Well, I'm just trying to
But
be
if the
fair
board-
with those people that are
Totally.
concerned, especially being they are quite the taxpayer burden, if you will. They're the folks that get the bigger tax bill.
And so that's a great recommendation. If the board would like us to do the wide swath to everyone that's got shoreline, I think the timing is helpful. We'll be back to you with the budget request coming up soon. Because we don't have the budget currently to do that wide swath, but if that's the board's recommendation, then we'll ask for that.
And this has been pending for, I think, 7 or 8 years. This has been kind of in the works,
And we've
So-
reviewed this strategy with the board on a couple of occasions.
Yeah, but we never, well, go ahead, sir.
I was gonna say, when you said 4 or 5 years, I have a piece of campaign literature from former Commissioner Valenzuela from 2014 that says one of her 3 priorities is to complete the long overdue shoreline master program. So we've gotta be looking at 8 or more years. So the planning commission, my question was, what is it that, you said you didn't have the votes to set a
Right.
hearing, what is there, they feel they need more time, or
It
what's
was
the concern?
4 yay votes, 2 nay votes to set the public hearing, first of all. And I did ask specifically what was needed to make them feel comfortable they're ready to set the public hearing. And one commissioner responded that he would like to see a printed hard copy of the entire drafting that included the guidance that they provided last week and a few outstanding items before setting that public hearing. So
That doesn't sound like that would take more than a month.
no, so we suggested that we would get that final hard copy printed and mailed to him ahead of the August 4th meeting, so that
When
they
you say
could-
him, I'd hate to have any one person get something. Why not send it to all of them?
We requested anyone who wants a hard copy. This is about 500 plus odd pages, so not everyone wants it.
Geez.
But it has appendices and mapping. It's a comprehensive plan and a set of
Access
regulations.
electronically to the document.
Yes,
The
they
asking
have-
is a hard copy is different.
Yeah, so it's again a taxpayer dollars and resources issue. If everyone wants a copy, they are provided a copy.
And they
I
do-
think
sorry to
3
interrupt.
folks
They
asked
do have
for
a-
it.
To county manager's point, they have a printable
Oh, yeah.
electronic copy. We are going to print it for them.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The 500 pages for
So-
one individual.
So if you're suggesting mid-September and maybe for whatever reason, they think they need a little more time from that, could the board set, say, mid-October as a deadline for them to set their hearing? I mean, that gives them a whole extra month if they felt like they needed it for some reason, just so we know that this is advancing. Is that appropriate, or I don't know how these things work?
We're working under the board's direction to proceed at an appropriate pace. You guys set the pace. If you guys wanted to, if the board wants it to go longer, that's under your
Would
purview.
the board be willing to set a mid-October deadline for a public hearing?
I guess I'm not against that. It's just that, does that fall within the guidelines of the Growth Management Act requiring the planning commission to set?
Go ahead.
Oh, no, is your question about the deadline for the SMPB
Yeah,
updated?
can we set
Oh.
the deadline, or
Are we infringing
do we
on
have the legal, yeah, are we
planning
infringing
commission's
on it?
process?
Yeah,
The
that's-
planning commission is an advisory body to you, the Board of County Commissioners.
Sure,
So
sure.
staff does not direct the planning commission's action, but the board can definitely direct and set expectations.
Okay, that's
for
all,
the planning.
that's my only question.
And I think that's a better way to say it, is set expectations versus set deadline.
I would like to make sure that all the affected property owners get notice. I mean, I think that's a big deal.
Okay.
You mentioned that 4 to 5 weeks. I always think of when we set a hearing, it's like in 20 days or something like that.
We want
But-
much more than that, yeah.
So, I mean, is there a time frame that we set or they set or you guys recommend? What's the deal
Well,
there?
we're recommending a 4 to 5 week open house, online open house, question and answer, opportunity to speak to your group, public outreach campaign. That's
So, I
what we
mean,
designed.
they won't set it for the next 20 days. They'll, like you're talking about.
No, exactly. What we actually asked at the last week's meeting, we asked the planning commission to set a public hearing for September 15th, allowing that it would have been 5 to 6 weeks of time for outreach. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
And I did, I had a call from one of the people that are apparently affected that are watching this, you know, that's going on. And he said the wording on the postcard was not agreed upon.
I would invite that commissioner or whoever to review the December 2nd.
But it's not a commissioner, it's
Oh.
one of the citizens.
Okay,
We'll
well,
talk about December 2nd.
December 2nd, it's recorded for anyone who wants to listen. There's a December 2nd, 2020 meeting where, actually, there was a November meeting where we brought initial draft of postcard language to the commissioners. And again, this is somewhat unusual to do this level of work with the planning commission on public outreach materials and wording in a postcard. We have education outreach professionals on staff who do that work. But the planning commission was interested in seeing just that they could be, feel like the draft they were working on was reflected and you know, talked about correctly in the postcard. So we shared draft language with them in November of 2020, I believe it was November 18th. They made some suggestions. We came back on December 2nd. We got a positive response from the planning commission. There was one word change that was made that was suggested that we then made, and then we're proceeding based on that language. They asked to see it one more time this last week, and then for reasons that are their own, there were some additional conversation around adding some more language or changing the language in some way. But again, this is part of the work of staff, is to make sure that the language reflects the facts of what's going out in the draft, and to make sure that we're not being alarmist, but we're being fact-based. It's not a political campaign postcard. It's a postcard about, we want to hear from you. These changes may directly affect your property, depending on your plans for development. Those are the kinds of phrases that are used in the postcard to get people.
I haven't seen it. Could you give the board?
Absolutely, I can email you
Just so we can
the
see
postcard.
what they're talking about anyway.
Sure.
And that's a prime example of how highly responsive Jennifer and her staff have been. When I opened this statement, I provided what I thought was kind of clear input on thank you for the direction, thank you for the time the Planning Commission has put into this, and thank you to the staff who's been responsive. We hire human professionals to do education and outreach, but to go the extra mile, Jennifer and her group have engaged with the Planning Commission upon their request to go back and forth on the language of a postcard and now how we're going to send it out. So all these different steps, I think, have been really just crucial and I think beneficial to the dialogue of transparency with the Planning Commission on this process.
So we'll have a discussion with a hard number on the expanded postcard, and it sounds like the board is in agreement we can have, I guess, come from Jennifer, you would direct, or do we need to write a letter? I don't know how this works, to communicate that the board has directed a public hearing be set by mid-October at the latest.
So I'm sorry, is the expectation that the public hearing takes place in mid-October?
No, it's just that
set in mid-October.
I would probably prefer they follow the staff recommendation and set it for mid-September, but I'm just saying that if there's some, I don't know exactly what went into their thought about the last meeting, and if they felt like X, Y, or Z was needed, then we're giving them another month to get X, Y, and Z satisfied, but we'd like to see a public hearing set by mid-October.
But no later.
No later than.
No later than.
I don't know if I'm willing to go along with that if their expectations to getting information are not met. I hate to force them into something that they don't feel. I mean, this thing's been going on I think longer than 14. I think it's been going on since probably, back around 7 or 8, I heard about it, So I don't know that we should all of a sudden just try to short circuit things and rush into it if it's been going on 10 years. Why push it here in the next couple of months?
I think that's exactly why we should do it.
Okay, well.
Well, and so let's recall that the public hearing is to get information on the draft. It's not a final decision. It's not a final decision from the Planning Commission. It's not a final decision from the board. It's to get information from the public. And that's all that we're as part of the next step in the process. So there's no short circuiting necessarily. This is part of the process.
Commissioner, and Jennifer reported that she specifically asked the question to the Planning Commission, what additional information do you need? And the only request was to get a printed copy.
Okay, well, I mean,
And that is gonna be provided,
it-
so at least from what I'm hearing, there is no pending additional information the Planning Commission needs. So I believe that is more than appropriate after all these years for the board to set an expectation to have a public hearing set by the Planning Commission by no later than mid-October. Then I think it's more than appropriate. 8 years in the making.
I guess I'm not quite with you on
Just providing a
the
perspective.
timeframe, because it's been going on so long. I actually don't see the rush, so we have a difference in opinion in that. That's okay.
And I'll just remind, like we said, we've had multiple iterations on the Planning Commission. We have had multiple iterations on the Board of County Commissioners. We're currently following the direction of the Board of County Commissioners to facilitate this process moving forward. So if the board decides that they'd like to provide different direction on our timing, we are open to that. But we are working under a previous board's direction to continue moving forward.
How often is the plan supposed to be updated?
I think every 8 years.
I think it
Right.
changed a couple of
And
years
it
ago.
changed, yeah.
Legislation changed on.
But
the
we're
timing.
years and years past our
It
deadline.
can't be, my point is, if it's supposed to be updated every 8 years, it can't be an 8-year process.
You was
Yes,
right.
we were lapping ourselves at this point in the.
So, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean,
Allow me to, there is I believe a proposal for the board to consider setting some
Expectations.
expectations that a public hearing should be set by the planning commission by no later than mid-October 2021.
I'm not sure that I'm there, but
Well, yes.
two votes in favor of that.
You abstain or?
probably, well, no, I'll just vote no
Okay.
at this point.
So.
And we'll still ask them next week. I mean, they could be more
Ready to
ready
do
than
it.
we think. And so
Yeah.
I think that would be real positive so that we can get, again, the broad public voices engaged.
So-
And not delay other projects coming before them as well.
So we'll leave it up to you, what will be the best piece of communications that we can deliver the board's decision on the expectations.
Just verbally that we had this meeting, or
Yeah.
would you like it in an email
I think it would be good to get an email
and to the chair?
that we could do to the chairs.
I don't want Jennifer
sit
caught in the
on.
crosshairs of misinterpreting, so
Yeah.
Ramiro, if you could send an email to Jennifer summarizing
That'd be
the
great.
board's decision, then she could just read it.
That'd be wonderful.
Then she's not putting any spin on it, or
Yeah, aside from.
accused of being
Not
putting
that I
spin on it,
do.
or whatever.
And also,
People worried about that.
and also, aside from, so there's a follow-up conversation related to whether we want to include the 11,000
Right,
citizens
right.
affected.
And we'll get the,
We'll get
The dollar
a
amounts.
follow-up conversation with regards to how much it will cost to go through all of the 11,000. When we get to the point of. public
it's
hearing.
set for 11,694 now. That's a third.
Oh, that's a third.
No.
No, I thought it was the, oh, the
Yeah, right.
11,000 was all.
Yeah,
That's the totals of
You
11,694.
No,
can scare me.
No, this is what, and I can work with our GIS analyst because it will be some subset of that 11,694
County
because
manager's correct.
the landowners, those are the parcels and the landowners
That
might
have
be
water.
lower than that.
Maybe they have multiple.
Exactly.
Yes,
Multiple
that
parcels.
usually happens.
I'll send you an email.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Before they leave, though, another topic on the planning commission, being as they're here, where are we at on the cell tower process of putting together a committee or maybe, that's another one we've been working on for years.
Keep it brief, because it's 12:17 and we got other things. on the
Next
agenda.
week, August 4th, we're bringing forth names for the consideration of the planning commission to build that citizen stakeholder committee to review the wireless
Okay.
code update.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's get to item 3, planning session agenda for August 13th
So
review.
I can attach for your consideration the agenda, and let me walk you through the items that I'm going to have. There's a whole day, and the items in here probably may take as much. So I have the Board of Health membership, which is related to the House Bill 1152. So we'll bring you a robust conversation as to what the steps the board needs to take in addressing 1152. We'll have time to the lake management districts in terms of the process of recommendations. That's a follow-up conversation that you asked me to put in this agenda. It's a working lunch. Lunch will be provided. This is going to be held in this room. Also, we'll touch base on the home fund, the 1277, which is the additional recording fees, and any other funding related to housing, and that will give the board the opportunity to have a robust conversation on the pre-funds. And we'll have a follow-up conversation on the citizens' appointments, boards and commissions, and the boards and commissions handbook that we've been working for your consideration. And then if there's time, commission items.
There's never time.
So if you have any additional items that you'd like to add, please let me know.
Well, I'd like to know the date. It's not gonna be April 16th.
No, sorry, thank you. Good, it's August 13th.
August 13th, okay. What day? Friday, August 13th?
Yeah, Friday, August 13th.
Okay.
Dang, I thought I covered all that. All right.
I would like to have, I don't know if, it doesn't have to be on this one, but I guess just a theme that I've been seeing recently is in regards to our parks department and trails, and I would just like to have a conversation in regards to that, but it doesn't have to be on this one. It'll be on the
I
next
think
one.
the parks and the level of service and everything else is related to a budgetary commitment. One of the priorities that we highlighted last week was really addressing the level of service in county parks in terms of staffing. So that will be a good conversation. But perhaps not at this time, maybe during the budget process, that's where probably the board will need to really assess and determine the level of investment.
Okay.
Parks and trails.
Okay, then let's go to item 4, which is a closed session. That's similar than, it's different than an executive session.
Before you go into that, this afternoon, we're going to be following up to the public testimony we received from Mr. Johanna on July 13th related to the cost reductions. There is not have been any cost reductions, any budget reductions to the 4H. And also we'll follow up to the testimony you received last week from Mr. Lake Stincy, and I have some perspective.
When will we see the Black Lake thing?
This afternoon.
This afternoon.
I'll address that.
Okay, so for this closed session, do we have to announce?
Yes,
all that?
similar, it's a closed session that will allow you to have conversations related to collective bargaining sessions. It's a little bit different than the executive session.
Okay, so the board will be going into a closed session pursuant to RCW 423144A regarding collective bargaining sessions, or subsection B, that portion of a meeting during which the governing body is planning or adopting a strategy or position to be taken by the governing body during the course of any collective bargaining. New employee holiday is a specific topic. Commissioners' action may follow. And what is our estimate for time?
I'll say probably 15 minutes, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
So a 15-minute estimate, it's 12:21, and we'll be back in approximately.
And I understand we've canceled this other executive